Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, October 9th. A lot has happened in the past couple days as far as Activision Blizzard. Activision Blizzard choosing to support censorship and the Chinese oppression of Hong Kong to the extreme. And people are really upset. In fact, I'm very pleased to see how upset people are. That being said, there's a lot of calls for boycotts, and we've seen boycotts come and go. Plus, there's internal, fighting certainly happening inside of the company. The employees themselves are upset with Blizzard, too. So we had a special stream because of the Halloween expansion, which they gave no advertisement to yesterday, and I put up this American flag to symbolize democracy, which it often does symbolize that, and self-rule, things like that, things that Hong Kong is specifically trying to fight for. And free speech, things like that. I could go on. I'm in a very weird position here. As a YouTuber, in all honesty, just to come out straight with it, there might be a benefit of writing the drama for a week or two, but also we've long gone to the point where Hearthstone is boring. It's been 5 years. I already have been saying I wanted to move to the Marvel game when it comes out. I think on a temporary basis, I'm going to experiment with moving the Magic the Gathering Arena. I just made an account. I will, after this recording, make a special setup video where we just go through the initial setup, and then I don't know, if everything goes well in the setup pre-recorded video, which will either be a spotlight or something I put out as a spotlight really early, so tomorrow or the next day or within the next week, that might be the beginning of the end of Hearthstone. Right now, though, we've got video game news and we've got daily quests, and I don't want to really get rid of that. Now, here's a big factor right here with why I'm in a good position to give up on Hearthstone is if nobody's playing, and let's face it, these people have been away for 6 days, so before any of this drama happened, a lot of these people have been away for more than a month ago, which could be an extremely long time. A lot of these were fans of my channel that watched just once or twice or for a few months and then stopped. Hearthstone's kind of dead. And having a daily quest that's challenge a friend when you have nobody playing the game becomes a big problem. That's a really big problem. We do have an arena run that we will do today, special, not on the Americas account, because there was a special daily quest to do that, but the thing I say we will specifically make an effort to is, open all the packs. There's really no reason not to have a farewell to Hearthstone pack opening video, but that's kind of it. There's farewell ranked play doesn't make sense. A farewell arena run doesn't make sense. I guess we could do arena runs and lower our gold, but honestly, that would be illogical. It's smarter to sit on the gold. As soon as I stop doing the daily quest, though, that's the end of Hearthstone. as far as the solo experience and getting free to play, because I most certainly wouldn't want to put money in Activision Blizzard's pocket at this point, and I've been nearly 100% free to play on Hearthstone up until this point. But if I'm not doing the daily quests, I won't be able to grind out the gold, I won't be able to afford the next expansion. That will just be that. This is how any games as service or games that just are designed to go on forever has to end. Either it ends this way or they just shut down the servers completely. Either one of those solutions is not particularly desirable. So the Headless Horseman is haunting your tombs of Uldum. Fight for his lair if you dare. We get a pack here. Actually, let's go back here and see what we need to play. 20 minions that cost less than 100 class cards. Alright. My concern was a little misplaced with Hasbro. Apparently Hasbro isn't owned by Disney, just very closely connected to Disney, considering how many Disney toys are made. Seems like we're going through a solo run of the Headless Horseman, and we have no cards. Alright, so Dr. Boom seems to be a hunter class, so we'll play Dr. Boom. No lines of dialogue playing in any of this. That's kind of surprising considering how every other solo adventure has a noisy sound effect or something that plays before you get to this point.
I'm suiting up.
Yep.
Something icky's going around.
It's kind of weird to go through several of these screens and not have anything happen. I'm just gonna hold on to all these cards. Yeah, but I think this, unless Magic the Gathering just proves to be incredibly slow, 3 times as slow as a game of this, and I'm hoping it isn't. Shuffle 2 bombs into the opponent's deck. They only have 7 cards anyways. Let's see. Cost 1 less for each. So you can do 16 damage with this weapon alone. So only 1 bomb would have to happen. It does put us in a weird position though where we really can't do anything. The other thing, and it's fair as a YouTuber to think this way, is this might just all blow out. There is an argument to be made, instead of just embracing a cancer culture type mentality and having everybody just knee-jerk react against Hearthstone and Activision Blizzard. It might be that within a week's time they do a full 180. Activision's got senators yelling at them, they've got their internal employees yelling at them, they've got their consumers, their fans yelling at them. There might be a way to make good here, but I'm not sure that that's really what's going to happen, and certainly there is something to be said about the fact that they were just so quick and so eager to fire people and cow them to China. Of course, we kind of knew that also. It's not like Hearthstone in particular has not been heavily pushed towards the Chinese market. It's not like I believe it's not League of Legends, it's the other MOBA game. Heroes of the Storm wasn't heavily pushed. These things have always been, it's always been Activision's intention to make as much business as possible in the China market, and it's always been China's intention for a very long time now to use the theoretical, and I really would just put it at theoretical, use the theoretical marketplace that might exist someday in China to push censorship worldwide, and I say theoretical because we well know that they're manipulating their currency, making things up, telling or heavily encouraging people to watch and purchase certain movies and support certain companies.
Dr. Boom versus
and it is having a negative impact on the rest of the world, certainly.
Gaze to the heavens. What do you
So Hasbro doesn't seem like it has any major investment by a Chinese company that I could see on Wikipedia for a quick search. Although, in all fairness, Hasbro, being the parent company of Wizards of the Coast, being the company that makes Magic the Gathering, does make a lot of their toys in East Asia, which almost certainly a lot of their toys are made in China. So, this is interesting. It's just going to give me a stronger weapon each time. It seems like. This is just going to put every card in my hand, drawing the extra cards, but and that really only works if you start with like 10 mana crystals. Yeah, there's not a lot you can do here. That's gonna be all my cards in my hand, giving me more options. But if I had a much larger deck, that would be a problem. See, this doubles the number of bombs I put in their hand. Alright, so at this, we'll just double check that the swap is happening. We are in an interesting position today because it was even Giant Bomb, which I did speculate that maybe Giant Bomb wouldn't talk about the Hearthstone thing at all. They talked about it pretty well. They didn't have, I think, all the details, and certainly the story has expanded since then, but they didn't seem to try to really spin it one way or another, and I really don't think anybody's going to be able to spin this Hearthstone censorship move as a good thing. The one thing they did try to spin is like, well, if they can move so fast to censor one player who spouts pro Hong Kong a message, why can't they move so fast to censor all the other players in all the other Activision Blizzard games that spout racist or rude things in the chat? Which I don't know if even any of that's true. I think that narrative may be getting pushed more. I'd like to see a deep evaluation of where the level of trash talk is in the Activision Blizzard games compared to any other game. It's still a silly statement and a false equivalency for sure, and it's still pushing a censorship narrative. It's really crazy for the guy who was saying it on Giant Bomb, Ben, to push a pro-censorship narrative while complaining about Hearthstone and Activision Blizzard pushing a pro-censorship narrative. It's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Either you're against all censorship or you're not, or you just have no stance on it at all. I'm not gonna say something silly like either you're with me or you're against me type stuff. So you're with it or you're against it.
Meet your fate. What is real?
I'm almost out of cards.
Right, well, this works. Put more bombs on. This does that.
Let's stash that away.
Put a couple of cards in there. There we go. So, we're not really sitting on a lot of news anyways today, outside of the Hearthstone thing, which we'll talk about more in detail from actual news sources. But that gives me this great opportunity to go make a pre-recorded video, and I do need to just make a pre-recorded video once to do the setup, and then after I do the setup and the initial levels, once we're in the actual play section of Magic the Gathering Arena, we'll just go from there. And assuming it has any kind of free-to-play way of playing at all, then we will, I think, try that. And we may, in all fairness, we may play Magic the Gathering for a short time until the Marvel game comes out. We may find that I'm just not super happy with Magic the Gathering, or it takes twice as long.
Your flaws are your strength.
Let's see.
Take that.
There we go. So we've got a decent strategy going on here. And we are playing minions. Minions have Wind Fury and Immune this time. Discover cards played this turn cost 0 and are removed from your dungeon deck. Ooh, that's no good. Summon 5 copies of a legendary. Do 1 damage to all minions. None of these are super useful. So otherwise, what I've been playing is just Lego City Underground. I'm at like 97% complete there. There's a collection of things to collect still in the open world that are kind of awkwardly placed, very hard to find, and eventually I just, after spending a couple hours barely finding 3 things, it really just came down to, oh yeah, I need to, I really need to not waste any more time and just look up a walkthrough. Now I kind of have a walkthrough that I skimmed to get the last few things. The scanner, which was added because it was a Wii U game, really just makes the game way worse, and it's totally useless when you only have one thing in a entire region, and you can only scan as far as an entire region if you maybe are standing in the exact middle of that region. But also all buildings occlude or block your view, so you can't, that doesn't help you any.
Take that.
And things just seem to have a tendency to be on top of the just on top of buildings, so when you're on the ground looking up you can't see them because you're seeing the edge of the buildings instead. Let's see, how do we want to do this? If I attack that, and then play this,
Fly, Polly.
and do this,
Job's done.
that's probably the best bet. Of course, filling up his deck with bombs at this point doesn't guarantee victory. It's just setting up a chance of a very long chain. Alright. This. And that. I might as well not attack. And so I do expect that I will be done with Lego City Undercover within the next 5 hours of gameplay. It does seem like there are actual bonus levels there, it's just that they are not shown well at all. Let's do this. And then in the turn. And then I really don't have a great clue as far as what I'm going to record otherwise. 711 boombox. And that's probably not a bad idea. And then just end the turn. Right. Here we go. We have a couple of things that says whenever a minion does something. And we have like one taunt minion. 1, 2. There we go. Now I need a chain of like 3 bombs. Bomb to win on that turn, but I think odds are still kind of high. Meanwhile, I guess we play this, and then give your taunt minions +2/+2, and then play some more bombs, and get that, and then hit that. I guess hit that. He's just healing up because of that. I managed to not have any drink. By the way, the clear plastic Tupperware I found out from watching Bar Rescue, and this is my source of knowledge that I'm getting from everything these days. The clear plastic ones that are supposed to only contain water, if you put like acidic fruit things in them, will break down the plastic and poison you with chemicals.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
Of course, those clear plastic water jugs also tend to be the types of things that target this minion with a spell. I probably don't have a spell
This would be a good time for
that
a
I could
master
do.
plan.
This is probably the best thing to do.
Take that.
So if I could just get a chain of 2 bombs, I'll win. But yeah, I had a large plastic jug that, let me explain that sentence, that I had as a backup source of water. That often the water would just sit there for like a month, which is probably way too long for water to be sitting without some kind of bleach tablet in it or something. And I washed it in the dishwasher and it melted the whole thing apart. So it was not dishwasher safe. Although half the things that say they're dishwasher safe are not dishwasher safe. Okay. We'll take these legendaries and we'll just keep on playing. And let's just start covering the news. And there may be some split here, certainly.
Versus the Colossus.
And I guess, since we need to challenge a friend, I guess we're just gonna start sending out friend requests.
Punished, thief.
Wait a minute. Oh, I haven't played anybody. I've just been playing the solo adventure this whole time, so there's no friend request to send out. Come to think of it. Okay, well then I guess I'd have to play something else to try to send out some friend requests to challenge a friend to inevitably just quit Hearthstone anyways. We're in a very weird situation. What this really doesn't feel like, though, is the beginning of Hearthstone's second act, where a bunch of fans are going to come to it. Meanwhile, Fortnite's creator, who is also owned in part by Tencent, in fact, I believe Tencent owns more of a percentage of Epic than it does Activision Blizzard, has said that they won't censor things. Now, they've been under the accusation that they would censor things for a long time, so it's not super surprising that they would come back and say that. Also, another CCG game
Let me tell you a story.
that is kind of more of an indie company has come out and directly said that they would pay the person who got fired and lost his winnings, Blitzchung, they'd pay what he lost and are inviting him, I guess, to come play at their tournaments. Now, I don't know if that's really a great reason to jump to what is almost certainly a collectible card game that won't ever gain any traction, because most don't. Like, quitting Hearthstone for political reasons is one thing, boycotting Activision Blizzard for political reasons is one thing. Falling into a corporate ploy that that ends up having you play a game you never were going to play in the first place is a completely different thing. So, yeah, Magic the Gathering, if Magic the Gathering Arena doesn't really work, then maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelists or Gwent. I don't think Gwent is free, and I really don't have money to be buying Gwent. Like, now is not the best time, I think, for most people to take on extra expenses as we are approaching the Christmas holiday and the rush of video games. This isn't good. Moving on with the news, TechRaptor has an article. Galarian Ponyta confirmed as a Pokemon Shield exclusive. I don't know how much of the hype train really needs to happen, frankly, for Pokemon Sword and Shield. I guess Pokemon Sword and Shield is also a great example of people were rabidly upset with Pokemon Sword and Shield, and they've kind of forgotten that. Like, let's just, in all honesty, let's just remember the no national Pokedex, no full Pokedex in Sword and Shield, how the graphics haven't really improved to a satisfactory amount for this first time Switch game, how Pokemon hasn't really evolved its gameplay or even streamlined its gameplay in decades, and makes these small insignificant changes that often just get reverted in the next couple of iterations. That there's a problem there. Yeah. You definitely have to see that.
Take this.
So the ideas of boycott Pokemon were thrown out there. Now, there wasn't particularly much of a political reasoning behind boycotting Pokemon, but the concept still existed.
Fly, ponies.
Take this.
Next article we have from TechRaptor is Apex Legends Fight or Fright Collection event gets spooky. I'm not sure anybody's still playing Apex Legends. Maybe we will, as my mind is totally preoccupied, and I am personally just taking, admittedly, a mushy middle solution here. I really am just picking a mushy middle solution right now. My decision may change very quickly, but maybe we will get to a point where all game companies are going to be asked in interviews and asked to come out with just a full-on statement about Hong Kong in particular, or just political stance. This is, in a funny way, exactly what a lot of the mainstream video game journalists have said they wanted, is video games should always be political, video games always are political. If they really start getting down the route of actually being political, I'm not sure people are going to be super happy with the answers they get, because people only want things to be political when their politics align with their own. They don't want Activision Blizzard coming out and going, okay, we'll be political. Here, our political is that we're going to be pro-China and pro-censorship. Like, nobody was really calling for that other than the government of China. And it certainly wouldn't stop there. It's like, and that's why most companies, rightfully, in my opinion, do say, like, we're not political, we're just here to make games, and that's all I really want them to do. So, I can't be upset when they actually do what I want. There we go. This will be interesting. If we get 2 that hit the face, we win. Otherwise, we kill everything here. That's the most Ragnaros's ever on the field. TechRaptor has another article here. Probably Monsters is a game studio that creates other game studios. This, I thought, had something to do with Bungie. Yes, this company was founded by Harold Ryan, the former president and CEO of Bungie, and is in Issaquah, Washington. I don't know where Issaquah is, if that's near Richmond, but Washington State's not that big. So, in addition to revealing themselves, Probably Monsters also has 2 studios they're launching. The first is Firewalk Studios, which is led by Tony Hsu, HSU, who's the general manager of Destiny business unit at Activision, and worked on both Destiny and Call of Duty Black Ops. He's joined by Ryan Ellis, who's the creative director at Bungie and lead artist at Oddworld. And the other studio, Probably Monsters, is setting up as Cauldron Studios, which is led by Dave Matthews. One assumes this is not Dave Matthews, the musician. Dave Matthews was the lead artist at Sony, having worked on the God of War games, and was the art director at both Bungie and Warner Brothers Interactive. He's been joined by CJ Cohen, who was the director of cinematics for all the Bungie's Halo games, and also the story lead for Destiny: The Taken King. New studios have announced what they're currently working on. So I just read the entire article, but this kind of shows the talent drain here. So it's questionable, to say the least, whether there are even going to be a it is questionable whether there are going to be even enough people at Activision Blizzard that could make a good game anymore. The answer, I think, to that is probably not. And even if there were, maybe it is just all run by the accountants. That's the accusation that's been said about Activision Blizzard for about at least a year now, is that the only people left are the money people, and when the money people are in charge, they run a company. This is what Steve Jobs accused Apple of doing, certainly. Scrolls of Wonder. Let's see. Or double my starting health. Doubling my start of health won't really help me much, so let's go with 10 Scrolls of Wonder. Do I want these legendaries, or is there something better to get here? I'm gonna take the damaged route. See, we've got 2 more of these to do. Komatsu has the same article. Probably Monsters developer of AAA game studios announces formation of first two development studios. What's weird here is the idea
This chamber will flourish with your
that
life energy.
seems to be we're making an Activision-like company that is this conglomeration of other companies that we're launching, which I don't know if this is some kind of financial, legal loopholing to make a parent company and then always form limited liability corporations for each individual project. That is something that happens in movies. I know that. Every single movie is its own LLC, and because it's its own LLC, if it doesn't make money, they never pay their employees, and if it does make money, then they find some other kinds of shenanigans to never pay their employees.
Destruction.
But I just kind of don't know. Otherwise, what the idea is behind having a company designed specifically to just play the same thing. This is crazy. We have done something insane here. Just straight up chaos. That was insane chaos before my first turn even started. Wow.
My remedies are all natural.
There's a lot of talent, certainly, that have left Bungie and Activision Blizzard. One hopes that that talent actually goes towards making good games, but there is a decent chance, it's totally believable, that these companies are just starting, and if we were going to see any acceleration of any company bringing out a product, it would have been, I think, Ben Brode's second dinner, and if they had just really tried to ramp up and have a bunch of games out, or have their one game at least out early by overhiring staff that doesn't really know how to work with each other yet, that's probably going to end up with a poor quality product. So we're talking 4, 5, 6, maybe even 8 years of time before any of these new companies that just got out from under the heel of Activision Blizzard could have any kind of product ready to be sold. Gamma Sutra has the same article here. Former CEO of Bungie founds new studio. Now, what's weird is I feel like Bungie at the current time also has a CEO and has split. Interesting. Why would I take an empty loot box? Is this some glitch? This feels like a trick. This feels like a trick. We don't really need these cards, and we really don't need these cards either. I'm gonna take this just for stupidity's sake. This feels like either this is a trick or this is straight up a glitch. And it wasn't supposed to do that. But we'll see. Or maybe this is a new experiment where they give you the option to just have this. If I go to Magic the Gathering Arena, I don't know of a Hearthstone deck tracker type app, so that would be thrown out. Now, arguably, the Hearthstone deck tracker stuff should just be integrated into integrated directly into the game itself. And the chat app, chat rules, American flag, if we're gonna do that, I wouldn't do that, frankly, for Magic the Gathering. The web peek where we go over to the side and look, all of that should still work perfectly fine once I set it all up. It would just be the deck tracking. This is gonna be interesting, to say the least. TechCrypto has an article here. EA reveals Origin Access October editions, which it seems like it's the most recent Shantae game. Slay the Apex Cell. How's this? So, you will get access to Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborhoodville Deluxe Edition, the Season 3 Battle Pass for Apex Legends, on October 15th. Origin Access basic users will get 10 free hours of Plants vs. Zombie Battle for Neighborhoodville. Then October 24th, 6 indie games will be joining the service. A pair of roguelites, Dead Cells and Slay the Spire, which Slay the Spire is also a game I don't think I own, but if I did, I probably would consider playing it over Magic the Gathering, at least for a short time. Home Behind, which is a game I've never heard of, a game called Shio, and a twin-stick shooter called Nex Machina, and then you get Shantae Half Genie Hero, which is the first game in the series, or the remaster of the first game in the series. I thought this was the most recent one, but okay. It's not terrible. I still don't think EA Origin is a useful...
Okay, then.
I don't think it's a particularly useful service as a subscription service where you don't own things. That's something. What's funny is the PlayStation 5 was in part announced, and I'm not sure I even have a message, an article about it because of the Hearthstone drama. But I do have an article here about the PlayStation 4 removing Facebook integration. So, okay. I don't know if that has anything to do with what Facebook did in their backend to make it not work, or if it's just Sony PlayStation has no interest in promoting Facebook, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly the case, is that they just have no interest in promoting Facebook, in the same way that YouTube removed integration with Twitter and Facebook, I believe they never even had, and Google Plus, of course, shut down. Honestly, though, there needs to be some kind of service, some kind of friend finder to integrate these things. It would be nice to have it, at least. I guess it doesn't really need to. It doesn't need to happen. This. This. And then that. is just getting ridiculous.
Special delivery.
There you
Darkness thrives.
go. There needs to be some kind of integration, certainly. Like, my personal experience for my personal Facebook page when I started it was very hopeful that this would be the place to hang out and communicate with friends in a ever-increasing, busy, complicated world, particularly as I started my Facebook when I was an adult, and my friends were potentially co-workers that no longer worked with me, or potentially old classmates that didn't work with me, so I wasn't seeing them. I wasn't going to a school being forced to see my friends like you often happen as a kid. So the fact that Facebook has acted so immorally to the point where everybody hates it, and now people are just, I think, mostly going to Instagram stories, which Facebook also owns, is sad and pathetic, and it's just separating the world. I won't really defend. Combines with other friends last forever. Interesting. Best friend forever. Discover quest reward. This card might not have been a bad card to have for the final battle too, and I think we are going into the final battle. But this, I think, is better, and I want to try it. Well, clearly this isn't a glitch. I'm just gonna take empty loot boxes every time, and we'll see what the Headless Horseman has to say. Meanwhile, we have a game on here called Escape Zolstar. It's clearly a low-effort game. Discounted to $2.39, English full audio, not making it to the fall list. I don't really have a lot of games that have come out. Every Halloween we fight the same Headless Horseman character. They've not done anything new in, I think, 5 years straight. It's pretty lame. Gamatsu has an article for the PS4 and Switch, Dark Devotion. It launches October 24th. This looks like it's a platformer RPG roguelike. Side-scrolling action RPG is what this is. I think I've seen Dark Devotion. Of course, it's hard to remember the games since I've seen so many of them at this point. Okay. This. Let's see what his ability is. Deal 2 damage to randomly split among all enemies.
Mummy needs 5 more.
We have a game here on Steam called Welcome to Chichester, OVN, Master Tournamenter, Grendel, Jinx, ? Tag sexual content. This is, if I recall correctly, a horribly drawn, low-effort visual novel series that they've put several out. It's free, but it doesn't have full audio. It's probably not good. It has 15 achievements. I don't know how free games have achievements per se. This is not a good series, I'm fairly certain. We can go back here, I guess, and see the other games and see if any of them have any reviews on them. Let's see, this one is reviewed very few, and everything else is reviewed mixed. Yep. So, yeah. They've just put out more and more versions of this series, and that's not inherently a bad idea. If if what you're trying to do is tell a story and you've got a story in your head, the problem
This would be a good time for a master plan.
is that let's see, 4 to a damage minion. Sure. Bring it on. 10 armor. Your cards cost 0. Let's see what you do with that. That'll be silly if that turns out to be super helpful for him.
Double time and double pay.
Attack this. 1 damage would kill 1, and that's it. Or I could do 3 damage to all the undamaged characters, and that wouldn't kill that either. I can't play anything else. We can get as many bombs as we want in here,
Dark path is my
but
destiny.
I don't think I've got enough. Alright. Attack this. Play that, I guess.
Ooh, monsters behind you.
1/1 copy of a minion from your hand.
Fly, Polly.
Should I just play this? I guess I probably should. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here for the PS4 and Switch. Harvest Moon Mad Dash is launched October 29th, physically November 15th in Europe. Harvest Moon Mad Dash, I don't believe is an actual Harvest Moon game. I don't think any of the Harvest Moon games have been good since the first Harvest Moon game. Okay. Let's do this. It's probably wise to get rid of some of these characters. Alright, let's see how this plays down. Now, hit the lower one in hopes that we can do more damage to the higher one with the bombs. There we go. And we don't need a weapon, so this and that. Man, yeah, switching to a new card game is not the greatest move right now, personally, because of just these seasonal affective disorder and just starting later in the evenings. Anyways, we've got a game here on Steam called Supercar Drift. It seems like it's just a standard racing game, mostly asset flipped. Nothing really looks wrong here, but the graphics are not up to the level of quality that you would expect from a racing game. It's $7.99. It probably doesn't have any AI. Has 11 different cars, 5 different tracks. That's way too few. So yeah, they're really, I don't think would be any Battlecry combined with other friends last forever. Alright, let's see what this does.
Let's blow this place sky high. Take this.
Well, geez, I should have played this just for fun.
Take that.
But whatever, let's just win.
My fire be hers. Die, insect.
Alright. So what I'm gonna do
Take
is
this.
I'm gonna kill this so I can play this. I guess they have to be cards that have friends in the name. So I had no friends, I guess. Oh well. So if I was gonna play this card, I would have had needed a bunch of other cards that had friend in the name, and clearly I didn't, so whatever. We've won. Unless he does something ridiculous, which is this. Alright. He pulled some shenanigans. Okay, then let's
Take that.
kill this. Get rid of that. What does this do? Destroys his head to win the game, but watch out for the fireballs. And this is the Headless Horseman's head. And if this lasts forever... What? How is that lasting forever? Let's see. One assumes that this is immune to brawl, but let's just see. Let's hit this and see what happens. He lost. So I guess brawl. Congratulations, 55 minutes. Beat it under 40 minutes for a reward. So that sucks because that means I would have to. This is all about time. Oh man, talk about the worst way to give you a challenge. That is just total garbage. Oh my goodness! Like I don't want to have to play that a second time. I don't want to have to go in here and beat it under an hour and in the next 7 days just for some card back, which almost certainly that's what this is there's some kind of card back that you would get, which look at this collection of card backs. I don't care about any of these. The card backs in Magic the Gathering Arena though, that does open up something they couldn't have ever done before. They've had to have had the exact same card backs since day one. I don't know where it would be, but yeah, I assume that's the reward, unless it's just another card thing. Meanwhile, I need to play people, I need to play hunter cards, I need to get daily quests done, I need to get through the news. There's just a whole nightmare scenario here. playing Mech Hunter is probably not the right way to go, so let's actually come over here and play Beasts on casual while we're at it. Meanwhile, news-wise, we have a Gamasutra article. Rovio warns brand licensing restructure could result in layoffs. No surprise there. Like, Rovio could lay off up to 20 employees. Rovio was only successful for the Angry Birds product game. They did a pretty good job in the short run of getting a movie made license from that, but and making several spin-off things, spin-off games of Angry Birds. But they certainly didn't innovate on their next big thing, and they just got lucky. In a weird way, nothing really has replaced Angry Birds with as much fervor, which is just another example of how the cell phone gaming market kind of fell to pieces on day one. Gamasutra has the big article. Blizzard bans Hearthstone's esports pro over Liberate Hong Kong interview. This is Blitzchung as he was in the interview. They've been trying to scrub the videos pretty well. Hearthstone has. He really only said 2 sentences. The expansion of this also seems, here's an update to the story, is really weird. People are putting paper over their core values that they're not living up to, which this was a protest image that a former Hearthstone employee tweeted out, former Blizzard employee tweeted out, so I don't know why the former employee, I guess he got the picture from a former co-worker and tweeted it out without fear of repercussions, since he doesn't work for Activision Blizzard anymore. It's hardly like Blitzchung went on a long scree. I think he said 8 words and that was it. Apple, I think, has also agreed to censor Taiwan's flag, which is China claiming they own Taiwan too. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if China claims they own everything, or they claim they own everything around their borders until they expand their borders. In a completely non-video game related issue, the continuing oppression of the Chinese Muslim minority is also apparently still happening. There's been accusations that they were harvesting them alive for organs, torturing them, trying to brainwash them. Now they're saying that they are paving over their religious sites and cemeteries, just trying to ethnic cleanse. There's no other term for it. They literally actively ethnic cleansing their Muslim minority. China's not good. I think there's been a problem, certainly in the last generation, where people thought that we were dealing with the new China, and maybe that was true with the former president somewhat, but no, not really. The communist military runs China. They have run China, and they are going to be oppressive and cruel fascists like they've always been. If anything, we've only encouraged them by doing business with them and turning a blind eye to their bad actions. And the United States in particular has been bad about doing that with a lot of people, and they need to stop. We need to have, in the United States, moral authority and and deal with people who are at least deal with countries who are at least morally righteous. You can see these stories as it is just constantly getting improved on, but yeah, this is a big deal. It's really sped up, and it may be the beginnings of a, I hate to say it, but maybe necessary World War III. That might be where we're heading, and that's might be the path that China is pushing us down towards. It kind of needed to happen. We needed to, in a broader sense, we haven't had a lot of new countries come out in the several hundred years, and the old countries have just gotten old and stagnant and power hungry, and so hopefully we would come out of the end of that with a better world in general. Or maybe we could put enough pressure on them, but the slow pressure tactics that the world has tried to do on countries like Russia and China have failed. Even the high pressure tactics of North Korea have completely failed to really bring about any actual change. Those kinds of the ideas of diplomacy only make sense when you're dealing with rational people who you can exert some kind of control over. They don't work when you're dealing with irrational, crazy people that potentially have entire militaries behind them. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. Sony confirms PlayStation 5 release window, teases a new gamepad tech. Basically, from what I heard, the new gamepad tech is not a lot. Let's see what it says. They gave an interview to Wired, which I think they did last time. It's going to be called the PlayStation 5. There's a picture of a device that's labeled the PlayStation 5 that I seriously suspect isn't what the final product is going to look like, because it looks particularly weird. It looks like it was designed because it needed a lot of cooling, and that was its only focus. It says the unit will support 8K graphics. I'm sure that's just upscaling 3D audio, which of course even PS4 had, like Dolby Pro Logic and DTS 3D audio, so I don't know if this is just DTS HD Plus or Dolby Pro Logic HD Plus or whatever the next version of codecs are, which don't really matter too much, and that really just is a factor based on how well the game is designed. And everybody is going to just design to the lowest common denominator, so if there's any 3D audio or 8K graphics not in the PlayStation, not in the Xbox 2, then nobody's going to spend that extra effort. Or if it does if the PlayStation 5 has something PCs don't support, nobody's going to spend that effort. Or if people are more interested in putting games on the Switch, then we may even get some lousy Switch ports and upscales that are on the PS5. They're claiming it will have a super fast SSD and be backward compatible in some way with the PS4 titles. That doesn't inherently mean that it will have a disc that you put in, though. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's see. The controller will be slightly heavier with a bigger battery. It will have adaptive triggers, which I guess maybe increases or decreases the tension on the triggers. Yeah, it says developers can program the resistance of the triggers so they feel the tactical sensation of drawing the bow and arrow or accelerating an off-road vehicle through rocky terrain. I bet people don't like that in the long run. And they're gonna have more haptic feedback like Nintendo's HD Rumble is what the speculation is. This article doesn't show the picture that I saw, but the picture looked like maybe it was a reasonable PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 prototype that then had this large U-shaped vents on the top. So it was like I guess not U-shaped, it was more N-shaped, the letter N. And then there was a bunch of buttons on the front of the console, and the console was just flat on the front of the console, and I seriously doubt that's what the PlayStation 5 really looks like. It wasn't even really black in its scheme, which all the PlayStations up to this point I think have been mostly black in color scheme, so that would be weird. Anyways, next article, we have a review for the Bradwell Conspiracy via TechRaptor. This is that weird looking game that seems like you're just wandering around an office building solving puzzles. Let's see how well it was received, because this could have gone either way. It could have been great, or it could have been terrible. No score being listed here. Well, the final paragraph says, the Bradwell Conspiracy is a fun-sized candy bar. You love it for the short time that it exists, and you wish it had more substance. I'm terribly disappointed in the final product, and I hesitate to recommend it to anyone. If you found the trailers or previews and trigger, consider your purchase carefully. You're liable to walk away unfulfilled. So they didn't really like it because it was too short, which is fair enough. Like, I certainly don't want to bother playing a game if it's going to be really short. Let's see, Gamasutra has a article here called Deep Dive: Telling Lies, Making a Mechanic Out of Scrubbing Videos. The game Telling Lies is the sequel to Her Story, but it doesn't seem like it has an actual ending, so you're kind of left with just deciding that you're done with the game and nothing else. Like, you really don't have any other options, and that the game is just bigger in scope, which becomes a bigger issue, certainly. It seems like they took the concept that was a fun gimmick of Her Story, and in its limited run, and then tried way too hard to expand that to something that would work as a longer run game. There's a lot of indie darling, like, unique games that have come out where you'd run into the same problem. Like, if you took Return of Obra Dinn and made it 2-3 times as long and complicated, nobody would like that game. I guarantee you that. It just does not work as that type of game at that size. If you took Papers, Please and made it twice as long, it wouldn't make it better. So length is not even a big selling issue to me in particular. As I'm playing the Lego City Underground, I'm like, oh, this is just so grindy and irritating. I would have been happier if there had been half as many collectibles, particularly since half the collectibles are right next to other collectibles, so it's not like you even have a sense of accomplishment finding them. When you've managed to get into one room and unlock 3 things, super bricks in particular are crazy because they, according to the walkthrough I've looked at, don't even account for the 100% completion, so they are just there for no reason, but they show up on the map, so you kind of have to try and collect them, otherwise they'll just be on the map irritating you the whole time, getting in your way. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article, get a job, join Game Closure as a back-end engineer. That's in San Francisco, California. Not sure what Game Closure has made. And I don't have time to really investigate it, so let's just move on. Oh, I was thinking on my server, which really means I was taking a break from recording. DLNA is in a weird point. Universal Plug and Play and DLNA, like the whole consortium of DLNA has been dissolved at this point. It's not adopted by people. It's just kind of a thing that I think will still exist. The problem, though, is there's not been a replacement standard. There's a Wi-Fi Direct, which lets you stream video or audio or from one Wi-Fi device to another Wi-Fi device, but doesn't really have any focus on specifically letting you like have a server where you have a large collection of music and audio. Instead, it's the idea that your 512 gigabyte micro SD would be your only collection of stuff, and everything else is just on some streaming service that you're paying a subscription for, which you can certainly see the money grubbing in that. So Wi-Fi Connect, Wi-Fi Direct is not really a replacement for DLNA. You have AirPlay, which is Apple's proprietary standard, which I don't think you can make an AirPlay server particularly easy on Linux, although I'm looking for some replacement software that might do that. And then you have Miracast, which is a standard that has just been abandoned and never caught on. And then you have, it's Miracast or Miracast is however it's pronounced. And then you have Chromecast, which again, I don't think you can make a server that streams that stuff. Now what you can do is just have Samba window file sharing enabled, and some devices will be able to just connect to your network and say, oh, here's a folder full of content, but then you lose features that DNLA servers usually have, which is the ability to transcode and change like a FLAC file to an MP3 file on the fly if a device can't actually play FLAC files, which most still probably can't. So you're in this weird position. I guess I'm not going to accept that friend request. Let's play 2 more hunter cards, I guess, where the old standard that is going to get no more work and no more improvements still kind of is the current standard because there's nothing else that's available. My guess is if the Wi-Fi Alliance had adopted something newer than just Wi-Fi Direct, a way to share files, something like Universal Plug and Play 2.0, that would be nice. But they've kind of stepped away from that and just focused on security, which is probably the better move in their part. So, yeah, I was thinking maybe just an HTML5 website, but most devices still don't have web browsers that could go to a page that you could like bookmark. The Plex server is the only thing that seems to have even a slight amount of support on it, and it seems like it's the default way, except for it's not free and it's not open source, and so thus I have a problem with that. Also, so that puts me in a weird quagmire. Not as much of a weird quagmire as playing Hearthstone still, but a weird quagmire nonetheless. I suppose it's possible that we would work our way into playing Magic the Gathering Arena. If it turns out I only have to play Magic the Gathering Arena once a week because of the way the daily quests stack, then that would be something. If it turns out I have to play it every day, that's probably a deal breaker at that point. So I really just need to look at the game in detail and get how it breaks down. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called RR3, which is just a Super Meat Boy clone in black and white. It's early access, discounted for $7.19. I did on Steam get a coupon code for some collectible card game right after the Hearthstone stuff broke, and like Noda, obviously. I'm surprised I didn't get 2 or 3 of those things, of coupons. It's the right move, certainly, to try and get other people's steal Hearthstone's audience, since they are one of the biggest collectible card games out there. Tech Raptor has an article here, Grid Review, which Grid, I guess the game is just called Grid. I feel like Grid came out several years ago though, so that's weird. And they gave a review summary here. They gave it a 7.5, a solid racing experience. Grid has enough under the hood to appeal to both hardcore and newcomer racing fans. Pros are, and they don't label these as pros or bad negatives. They've started doing this ... or at least some of the reviewers have. Simplified vehicle stats and mechanics that may be too simple for some. Visual impressions. This is mushy middle ways of writing a review, by the way. Visually impressive, but it lacks standout music. Solid racing action, but not a lot of vehicle customization. Not that I think you really need that in a racing game. It's nice, but it's an add-on. The flashback system returns. The Nemesis back mechanic is rarely a factor. My experience with racing games in particular has just kind of boiled down to, yeah, I'll play a racing game if I get it cheap and kind of old. Like, if cheap is the main factor there, though. Yeah, I'll play a racing game if I get it cheap, but I'm certainly not chomping at the bit to play racing games in particular, since they are all pretty much the same. Next, we have a game on Steam called Shuffle World, where you move the world around, which feels like you'd need a mouse to do that. I don't know how you really would do that with a controller. And this mechanic is kind of unique, but I think it kind of ends really quick. This effectively is just a Lemmings game, where I assume you're not playing this character at all, or you're not controlling the character and shuffling the world at the same time. Meanwhile, it does feel a lot like a one-screen Unity screen, although it does have a slightly custom background. There's nothing visually appealing about it. It's discounted to 59 cents, it's bundled with a whole bunch of other things, it's English only with 42 achievements. That makes me suspect heavily that it's an achievement game. Let's see. This. Back here. Attack here, and then return. Next we have a game on Steam called Mini Tanks, which clearly is going to be a low effort top down twin stick shooter. Asset flip game, yep. Discounted to $2.24, which isn't much of a discount, and it's English and Chinese. So a cheap Chinese product. Which certainly I have been saying for a long time that we need some curation in general on Steam storefront, and letting, in particular, the cheap troll Russian games, the cheap troll Chinese games on Steam has caused problems. It causes problems for me, I guess. Maybe it doesn't cause problems for an average person, because maybe an average person doesn't see any of these terrible games. That is very possible. But it is wasting hard drive space, it's wasting people's time, it's flooding the marketplace in a post-search way. It makes, when you go to search for a game, more difficult, and it makes Steam have to curate the searches more difficult, where it's kind of the equivalent. I believe there's like a Scholarpedia Google search website, or there was at one time, that only searched academic scholarship, not scholarships, but academic papers. A custom search like that probably returns you much better information on scientific topics than just going to Google and searching is water toxic, or is the earth flat? Like, yeah, is the earth flat is a great example. You go to Google, you search that, within the first 25 pages you probably will run to some kind of troll joke site or just stupidity site saying yes it is, whereas a custom scholar Google site that may or may not have never ever existed in the past would give you consistent, accurate information that no it isn't for the entire results, or at least the first 100 pages. Level by Level Gaming's on the chat saying, hey Rydo, it's been a while. Part of the early video game crash in the 80s was a flood of crappy games, and I can see the relation to what you're talking about with the flood of crap on Steam. Yeah. I don't know if the video game crash was actually in the 80s or the 70s, but I totally know what you mean. It's where the Nintendo seal of quality came from, and even Nintendo now is really failing to uphold any kind of standards on their own platform. We get some pretty bad games, usually visual novels or just simple puzzle games, that are coming to the Nintendo eShop, whereas previous generations they wouldn't have allowed that. Of course, then the Nintendo eShop also has some amazing indie games. My best suggestion, and I haven't put a post on Steam yet suggesting this directly to Valve, but I should, is they should create a council. Since Valve is crazy libertarians, I lovingly call all libertarians crazy libertarians, because frankly I totally think their concept is insane. But since they want to be hands-off, since they don't want to be the curator of people's taste, which is total BS because they totally are the curator when it comes to any Japanese adult game. They censor those like crazy and don't let those games on all the time. But then they will allow Russian troll garbage games and Chinese garbage games on Steam Direct. And I know really they just want that $100 Steam Direct fee more than anything else, and that they're just taking money to make money and being greedy. But my suggestion would be a council of elders instance. Let's see if Larry will be online, because I want a friendly challenge and do this daily quest, but I guess I have to do this later because Larry, who I just friended, is doing battle and play mode, so it would be another 20 minutes before we see him. So let's just move over to the next account. Yeah, if they made a rule where you could sign up to be a council of elders, a council of quality, have 10,000 people on it, even maybe 100,000 people of Steam users, make it where you have to have at least 500 games that you actually purchased and played. Maybe I haven't even played 500 games on Steam. Maybe I'm making a metric there that's like too high a bar. But make it so you couldn't just create a Steam account and then join this council of quality, and then you would have those members be able to look at the discovery queue and flag games for just being low quality. Or you just put a straight up flag where it's just like, this game is low quality. There's definitely some keywords that they're not even bothering to scan for. Like, it's easy to go, let's flag every game that has hentai in the name, or slide puzzle in the name, or hidden object game in the name, and just say, hey, let's take 5 seconds to look at this game and see what it's doing, and seeing if it is a garbage thing. Or just look at all the games that are selling for 69 cents. Like, if it's at the bottom of the barrel price wise, it's probably at the bottom of the barrel quality wise. So there's a lot of automation there where they could just get rid of some of this stuff, and maybe they do get rid of things months later. But I follow what's on Steam.com or what's on Steam's Twitter feed, and it gets to Steam's API to push out these games as being new games available on Steam, available for purchase. There should be some larger level barrier. Let's see. We need to, I think, win 3 Tavern Brawls, which, oh, that's going to be a nightmare here in this case. And we'll do that Friday, I guess. And then I have an arena run still going here, so I need to continue this arena run. So there's totally something they should do. I think all the game publishers are going to have to put their foot down. Level by level gaming, agreed. Level by level gaming, while you're on here, I'm going to change the topic a little bit. I assume you've heard about Activision Blizzard and Hearthstone censorship, and I assume in general you've been following Hearthstone and playing Hearthstone, or watching me in bits and points playing Hearthstone. So I'm thinking within maybe a week or so, this will be the end of me playing Hearthstone. I'm going to temporarily move over to Magic the Gathering. After the stream, I'm going to make a special video just going through the initial tutorial and make a spotlight on that, make sure I can actually play Magic the Gathering and it doesn't turn into an incredibly long experience or frustrating experience some other way. So I'm looking for feedback on my few fans that do pop up and watch a live stream whenever they get notifications, which is pretty much never. How do you feel about this potentially, me potentially moving over from Hearthstone to Magic the Gathering Arena temporarily. When the Marvel card game from Second Dinner gets released and available, I still would jump from Magic the Gathering, I think, over to that. This wouldn't be the first time I've ever played Magic the Gathering, but it would be the first time since like Ice Age, so that's a very long time ago. So things will, it's basically the first time. And I'm not really going to change the format too much. I'm not looking to change the format too much. It's still, even from day one, will be me playing Magic the Gathering on one screen and talking about video game news and talking about the games that come out. I haven't burned out on the concept of looking at new games that come out, although if I had more time and wasn't playing 3 different accounts, which was a big mistake on my part. I really should have only been playing 1 account on Hearthstone this whole time. If I have more time, then I can curate more of the games that I look at on Steam, and we can just skip a lot of the garbage things, which is the vast majority of what comes out. But let's see the chat. Level by Level Gaming says, I support your decision. I have a love and hate relationship for this game. Yeah, that's really where it has boiled down for me too. It's like I wanted to leave Hearthstone before they pushed a pro censorship stance, and I really can't support Hearthstone. Now, I don't want to completely say I'm just going to immediately abandon any company because they do one thing politically I disagree with. I'm not trying to overreact here. I could even see myself making the argument of sticking with Activision Blizzard and Hearthstone in hopes that their employees that are against the stance the management took might win out, and that they might learn from their mistakes. But I'm 5 years into this game in particular, and I'm done with it. I was done with it before the censorship. I'm totally done with it now. I've been particularly anti-censorship. My channel has evolved to specifically point out even the adult games on Steam as they come out, because I don't want to be this passive voice of censorship that is trying to make my videos, or particularly my Hearthstone videos, family friendly so they get potentially monetized on YouTube if my channel was ever capable of being monetized again, which they moved the goalpost on that, so I still would need 1,000 subscribers and I only have like 330. And they've claimed that they're thinking about lowering that requirement. It literally went from you had to have 100 subscribers to be monetized to 1,000, with no concern or what would be the word, like no grandfathering in of smaller channels or older channels. So yeah. Level by Level Game says explain the censorship again. So in the past couple of days, and I'm not surprised you haven't heard all of it, and I'm gonna get a lot of this wrong, but Hearthstone was having a tournament, maybe it was in Taiwan, I don't know. They were having a tournament somewhere in Asia, and one of the winners of the tournament by the name of Blitzchung appeared on a post-game interview after winning about $10,000, and these numbers are all going to be wrong, and he was wearing a mask and goggles, and he said about 8 words of support for Hong Kong democracy. Activision Blizzard Hearthstone then is now, I don't know how this is even legal, refusing to pay him his winnings. They've banned him from play for 1 year. They're trying to censor and scrub that video from the internet. They fired the 2 interviewers who were literally hiding behind their desk, and you can take that as, oh, they were giggling and hiding behind their desk, or they were trying to not be involved, but not trying hard enough by not cutting off the conversation completely. Hearthstone is using a agreement in the tournament that was designed clearly to stop people from screaming like racist or offensive things in interviews or around, or I guess around a tournament, and they're abusing their interpretation of that to include a simplistic short sentence of political support. Activision Blizzard has their Chinese Twitter account came out and made some statements saying, of course we support our country, which is a crazy thing for Hearthstone to say, saying that their Chinese account saying that China is this American company's country, really, but it seems like that's probably an accurate depiction, because they certainly seem to believe that they're a Chinese company looking for Chinese money. A lot of people on Reddit in particular are very upset, which China is, Activision Blizzard is in small part is owned by Tencent, so this is an example of why Tencent really should not be a video game company and should not be allowed to invest in any companies, is because they're spreading political influence of the communist Chinese government, and that was the goal all along. The only reason Tencent exists as a company is because China made a law forcing all video game companies to partner with companies like Tencent to sell their products in China. So they just went super greedy. They went very pro-censorship. It could have been, there's different ways you could have resolved this. You could have just said, we do not support any political statements made by any of our contestants at our tournaments, but we do support free speech and the right for anybody to say it. This is, I guess, the equivalent of the kneeling story that was going on around football in the United States over the past couple of years. And yeah, people are very upset about it. Meanwhile, it was only a couple days before this that a NBA team owner tweeted out support for Hong Kong, and then the NBA also kind of stabbed them in the back for a short time. I think the NBA realized that was the wrong thing politically to do. So this Hong Kong fight for democracy is just a fight that has been brewing and going for, honestly, it's since at least 5 years, but probably since day one of them not being a British colony. They have been fighting to maintain their own independence, which is what they want, instead of being forced to be a part of China, which they don't want. This mostly kicked off with them attempting to Hong Kong's government, which is run by China, basically. The police are in the government. Were attempting to pass laws to extradite people that they would have claimed were criminals, but were really political opponents to China, so that they could be then put in some kind of concentration camp or killed, which China executes more people than I think any country by far. So yeah, long story short, China sucks. It has sucked since for decades. We as United States people have been putting our heads in the sands about that. And Hong Kong wants freedom, and they don't want to be acquired as a territory. And Activision Blizzard is a greedy company that is bleeding out all of its talent and it being run by the money men, and the money men don't care about ethics or even their own outward appearance. Like this was a bad move financially for them to try and censor this statement when this really would have just been a story that would have disappeared. Like literally, this story would have never made it to Reddit if it weren't for the fact that they very quickly took down the interview. They took down that entire day's worth of play. They're trying to scrub the fact that he even won. They're taking the money away from him. They're banning him for a year, which, let's face it, they're banning him for life. They fired the employees and they banned them from ever being rehired.
Let the hunt begin.
So yeah, that's the censorship thing with a lot of other things wrapped around it. Personally, I've been anti-censorship probably all my life, to a certain extent. I still do believe that a level of control needs to exist. I don't want 6-year-olds coming to Steam and clicking on a game link and then immediately in the screenshots seeing like full frontal hardcore pornography or anything like that. That would be insane. So there should be age gates, there should be appropriateness. There is an argument that I go back and forth as far as Steam as to whether the screenshots should be censored with like black bars or they shouldn't, so you actually know what you're seeing, particularly in the case of a lot of Japanese games which have to follow the Japanese censorship law, in which all the lower parts are blurred anyways. So there is a censored versus uncensored, blurred versus unblurred subcategories of a lot of the adult games, depending on what country it's coming from. So a screenshot in that part might be a little bit helpful.
I wonder.
So yeah. Level by Level Gaming said, I guess my question, what's wrong with freedom and independence? But even if you're trying to be neutral, this is extreme, what they did to the winner. On a side note, had friends that lived in Hong Kong for years and moved to LA when British rule was over. They saw this unrest coming miles off and got out of town. I imagine a lot of people did, but a lot of people couldn't. Like, that's migrating in large numbers is not encouraged and hasn't been ever. Like, you could probably go back 6,000 years and seen tribes in the Middle East trying to migrate from one area to another due to political disharmony. But it doesn't work. That's the major problem in the United States right now, is that we've got a lot of migrating people from South America, and we have a lack of political interest to actually help those people migrate the proper way or allow them to migrate at all. So had the entirety of Hong Kong up and left as soon as British rule ended and it was just an empty island, that still probably wouldn't have been a good move. Some people are forced to stay, some people choose to stay and fight. I can't blame any decision there. It's such a personal decision.
Side effects? No.
One of the things in particular about Hong Kong is that Hong Kong's money is financing a lot of China. China may be a huge square footage of area, but it's an incredibly poor country that's frankly pretending that it isn't.
The grave buys you no rest.
So there's a need there from China's part, if they want to continue to pretend like they're a rich company, is to have Hong Kong under their control and gain through taxes or gain through control the success that Hong Kong had. If it were just a simple equation, Hong Kong and China have a lot that they could offer each other, considering Hong Kong is incredibly overcrowded but very rich, and China does have some pretty rural areas. They do have a lot of square footage, but then they also are incredibly overcrowded too. But certainly I'm also no expert on it, and my decision to leave Magic the Gathering, for Magic the Gathering, is only 50%. It's only the straw that broke the camel's back that
I want
this latest instance. I was already halfway out the door anyways. So, moving on with the news, we have Famitsu review score, issue 1610. They gave a game called Family Tree that I don't recognize on the Switch, 28 out of 40, which is particularly low. FIFA 20, which leaked all of its player information, a 34 out of 40, which is pretty high. Jack Quested Tale of Sword, a 26 out of 40, which is even lower. MotoGP 19, a 30 out of 40, which is low. Mistover, a game I don't recognize, 29 out of 40. River City Melee Mach, 27 out of 40. And the Sparkle 3 Genesis for the Switch, 27 out of 40. So, according to Famitsu, which is probably one of the best and most respected review sites out there, this was a bad week for games to come out, and I totally had that feeling too. This is like the week before all the AAA games come out. I think The Last of Us comes out either next week or the week after that. We I think are rushing towards the holiday season where we will have a lot of things come out. Now, almost every year, let's take everything with a grain of salt. Almost every year, there's a ton of games that have been hyped up to come out for the winter, like Christmas holiday season, and then I would say well over half of those games are garbage. Like, even the ones that have been hyped up, even the ones that really have no excuse for being as bad as they are, those do tend to be way worse than they should. So this year in particular, yeah, we will see some games. Borderlands 3 was the one game that I was most excited for, and by the time Borderlands 3 came out, even in its Epic Store exclusivity, I was not willing to play that game, because the one thing that gets you blacklisted as a company from me covering your games is if you put out false DMCAs, or at least the major one thing that gets you blacklisted as a company. And 2K Games, this isn't even really Randy Pitchford or Gearbox's fault so much this time, put out false DMCAs and ruined somebody's YouTube channel. So it's not worth the risk of covering a 2K game anymore, which I probably have a dozen 2K games that I probably will still cover just because I already own them. But I'm not gonna fund a company that acts that way. So with Borderlands 3 out of the way, and not having a PlayStation or any way to stream or even permission to stream most PlayStation games, they're particularly picky. I really have nothing I'm excited for the rest of the year, even if I had the funding to buy something brand new. Personally, I'm just gonna move on, and I'm gonna see if I can grow to love Torchlight 2 as a replacement for Diablo and some of the other games that are out there that might be potential replacements for other Blizzard titles, because I kind of did want to cover all the Blizzard titles at one point, but that seems less likely to ever happen at this level. Level by level gaming goes. How do you feel about Nintendo attacking ROM sites over games that are decades old? It sucks. Nintendo has been very slow to embrace reality in a lot of ways. The sites they're particularly attacking do seem to be selling the ROMs instead of saying, oh, frankly, they should be making an argument that, while not maybe legally, morally standing, these games are abandonware. These games should be in the public domain, even if legally in the United States they aren't. A lot of of America's actions are direct copies of Nintendo of Japan's actions that follow the Japanese copyright system, which is even worse than the US copyright system. This is where SOPA and PIPA and all of those laws need to never come into existence, because that would be giving the worst example of copyright to everybody in the world. Nintendo has done the bare minimum to re-release their games through their eShops, and most people would still probably, if you have a Switch, go to the Nintendo subscription service and get those ROM games for free, then go to a website and try to figure out how to install RetroArch on your computer or build a Raspberry Pi that can play those ROM games. That's a lot of work. That's for enthusiasts. It's for tech nerds like me. It's not really for the end user. Nintendo was incredibly successful, despite the fact that there was ROM sites running for decades. They were incredibly successful in selling the Nintendo Mini, showing that people would have been willing to buy basic ROMs of games over and over again just to support Nintendo. But morally, when you come right down to it, who are you supporting if you buy a copy of Donkey Kong? Like, that money maybe is going to Nintendo in general, but Nintendo barely even makes games. They license other companies to make their games, and they just sit on their IPs. And that's why they attack the ROM sites. But it's kind of pointless too. This is what has been happening with the Pirate Bay for decades now. It feels like people try to sue the Pirate Bay out of existence. It pops up again with a new domain, and it keeps on doing the thing it keeps on doing. Though these files are out there, they're peer-to-peer, exists. VPNing exists to hide your actions. People that want the ROMs will get the ROMs. In a lesser-known story, the Internet Wayback Machine at one point had the first 100 or so issues of Nintendo Power that were in public domain, or at least they thought it was in public domain, on their site. And Nintendo several years ago came out and said, no, you can't have that on your website, that's copyright infringement, or whatever. They took it down one way or another. They've done nothing with old issues of Nintendo Power. There's literally nothing you could do with the Nintendo Power. Meanwhile, if you went to a large enough library, they probably have a large collection of old Nintendo powers you can rent out and use. They probably have a decent collection, most libraries, of even old NES games in cartridge forms and old NES consoles. So people that can't afford it can go to the library and get it. Why can't the similar concept be applied digitally? People that can't afford to buy the Nintendo Mini or buy the games through the Switch, or why can't they get it and enjoy it? But really, my main issues on that whole argument is there's problems with the copyright law. A lot of things should be in public domain now. Buying a old game that's just a ROM running through an emulator does not really support the creators that created that game. It does not really help Nintendo, who has allegedly 100 years worth of annual salary sitting in a bank. Buying one ROM from them doesn't influence their decision on whether they're going to make the next Mario Odyssey. We know they're going to make the next Mario Odyssey, and that's really where they should just focus their attention instead of having lawyers get involved. But I would also say that Nintendo's probably not as litigious or ridiculously litigious as a lot of other companies like Bethesda. Like Bethesda and ZeniMax in particular sue people for really, really stupid reasons. They sue kids, they sue their parents, they're suing for mods, they're suing for really, really dumb things. Whereas at least I kind of understand Nintendo not wanting to actively look like they're allowing a ROM site to exist where you have to subscribe to that ROM site and just to download those things. Let's see.
I sense your struggle.
So, yeah.
I want answers.
And I don't think there's really too many people, video game fans. Even at one time I was a huge Nintendo fanboy. Like, I don't think there's too many people that feel too different. Like, the idea of getting a digital copy of something that is effectively abandonware does not feel the same to most people of a modern generation as robbing a bank or shoplifting. Because you're making digital copies, you're not depriving anybody of anything. You're just potentially depriving somebody in some theoretical way of making money off of you, and it has just gotten incredibly expensive to live your life these days. That's not a reasonable, valid argument. So that's pretty much how I feel about Nintendo attacking ROM sites. Even if Nintendo tried to ramp it up a lot, they would really just be wasting their money. They're what they're probably doing. I can't believe I have 3 wins and only 1 loss. What they're probably doing is just making some landmark cases to remind people, oh yeah, we don't appreciate this, or we still fight this. It almost certainly is one of the oldest managers of Nintendo of Japan, in particular, some lawyer somewhere that tells them they have to do this every now and then.
I will fight with honor.
Meanwhile, you still have plenty of sites that will randomize a ROM, like Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, or Metroid, or Super Metroid. So there's a very large community of speedrunners and people who are taking ROMs that you would have to get from a ROM site pretty much, unless you buy a very expensive hardware device to read the ROM file directly from your own hardware, which there's no reason to do that. That's part of the weirdness with that too, is that almost certainly most of the people who download ROMs paid for a significant amount of those ROMs at some point. They bought those games, they had them, in the past. Now, I will fully admit that most people probably, just for convenience sake, will download a full pack of like every NES game that ever existed, and then only delete most of them and only play the few games that they actually have nostalgia for. But if they have nostalgia for it, that probably means they paid for it one way or another. They rented the game, they own the game. So it's not even a case of just a greedy person wanders around on ROMs and goes, hey, I want to try these ROMs. Like I never played a Commodore game as a kid. I never played a Atari game as a kid, which there is an Atari news story today. So I have zero nostalgia for Commodore or Atari games. So maybe I would, for historical sake, play Custer's Revenge or play the E.T. game on Atari. I might see if there's some interesting ports. I believe both Atari and Commodore had Donkey Kong ports that were pretty awful. But honestly, I think I actually do own Donkey Kong on Commodore. Even though I didn't have a Commodore console, I bought it as just a collectible. But yeah, I have really no large desire to go and play games I didn't own in the past. That is also true for things like the Sega Genesis. I didn't have a Sega Genesis, so there's only a small games I ever played on that. So I really wouldn't want to play all of those. And inherently, there is a think of the children argument for ROMs in particular to think of too. Like, I would much prefer my theoretical children to play ROMs on a Raspberry Pi than to be playing free-to-play garbage that costs money and potentially is going to cause me to potentially have to lock down my phone because they're buying V-Bucks on Fortnite, or they're playing just an awful game on their phone that is just not really age appropriate or not there. That is the whole concept of public domain in a nutshell, is that the next generation or the next group of people was supposed to benefit from the artistic creations, the knowledge, the understanding of the previous generation. You only have to look at the Bible itself. If the Bible was copyrighted and you had to pay for every copy of the Bible, now their King James Version still seems to have some versions that are still somehow copyrighted ridiculously, but ignoring that, then all of the teachings, for better or worse, whether you agree with them or not, in the Bible would only be available to rich people, and that doesn't help society. And all laws in the United States, and people don't really know this, are supposed to be written to help the largest amount of society as possible. There are some laws that protect minorities, definitely, but it is in the belief that protecting minorities, we are protecting the rights of all, and thus we are doing the moral right thing to protect all of society. Copyright, on the other hand, and the forever expansion of how long something stays in copyright has done the exact opposite effect. It has done nothing but support the smallest class of people, the rich corporations who buy often the copyrights of things that they didn't even create, while disenfranchising every other class of people in the United States by disallowing them to have easy, free access to information and information is way more valuable than even money. So that's a long rant. Level by level said, well said, sir. I'm so glad I asked. I don't have any moral problems with enjoying something that I know the original creator, developer can't get robbed by my actions. Yeah. There's, in Nintendo's case, like Shigeru Miyamoto did work on NES games, and he still works at Nintendo. But his salary is not getting cut because people are downloading ROMs. Meanwhile, the new creators at Nintendo aren't getting their salaries cut either because people are downloading ROMs. So there's a lot of hysterics, and ridiculousness that is said against downloading digital forms.
Hear me roar!
But yeah, I could keep on going on that, but I want to try and cover all the news, otherwise I'm going to be here all night. We're having a great arena run, too, which was unexpected to say the least. I was not expecting that an arena run would actually succeed. I was expecting that I would just get 2 losses and be done with it. Because that's been my experience for 5 years straight, is a consistent 2 losses with no wins in the arena. When I leave Hearthstone, if I do abandon it, I will just leave all the gold. So I'm not going to do arena runs and make a big deal of leaving. I'll do a card pack opening goodbye, and we'll try to make that video once I've fully committed to stopping playing Hearthstone. We'll try to make that like a 100% positive experience. We'll explain the situation in brief, and then I'll try to be as positive as I possibly can, which for me is probably not that positive, frankly. Critics are not known for being positive. We're known for being the opposite. That's why everybody hates a critic. Moving on, there's this interesting thing that I believe was tweeted out by the ESA. There's this experiment happening here with virtual reality being tested on and given to Tennessee veterans. That being said, it's a little weird to think that you would give veterans who very possibly all have PTSD a VR headset that they'd be trapped in. These aren't veterans, but yeah, they are veterans, but they seem to be also focusing on elderly people too. So one of them's a 93-year-old World War II veteran. You're going to give them a VR headset that they're trapped in, and they're giving them a special software. They're not giving them Call of Duty. There's another story that we'll talk about where they actually are giving just standard games to veterans, and I'm absolutely certain that there probably is a level of veterans that do play military games, but maybe they shouldn't. And if I was running an organization like that, not this organization, you can check out this Nashville Channel 5 story, Virtual Reality is taking Tennessee veterans on adventures, if you're interested. We'll see more of this, certainly, as VR gets cheaper, but then we'll probably also see less of it as people realize that nobody likes VR. It's too expensive. If I was running an organization, though, that was specifically giving video games, whether they're VR or not, to veterans, I would probably have to go 50-50. Do something like a Humble Bundle, where every month we're going to have a military war game that comes out, like honoring the military game, and then I probably would put out something very calm, relaxing, simplistic puzzle games also, and try to keep it balanced. That way, if somebody has PTSD and doesn't want to play military games, then they don't have to, and they still get something out of the subscription, or which I guess if you're giving these games to veterans, it would probably be something that is a donation. That's one of the beauties, I think, of Halo, and I think probably a small reason why it was so popular is that while Halo is militaristic in its gameplay, it's set in this fictional, ridiculous world where you're fighting aliens. You're not using regular weapons. You're not really doing anything that feels anything like the actual battlefield or anything like that. So yeah, I think that's part and parcel why Halo was super popular. And we'll talk about that article, I guess. I can't really do anything. I hate when you get in this situation where it's 1 health. If I could make him draw 11 cards, that would be great, but I can't. So all I can do is play this card, because if I hold it back, then he won't try to kill it. Next game we have on Steam is called As Divine Chimera, which looks to me like it's a half JRPG, maybe a little bit of a visual novel, but it's just labeled as a JRPG, and it kind of feels like it. What's funny here is, unlike like RPG Maker games, they've taken an effort here to make a widescreen screenshot with the camera zoomed in a lot more as they're walking in the overworld. This actually looks like this might be one of a retro-looking RPG game that I am willing to at least put on the follow list. There's still a high chance that this is just your standard RPG garbage game, and so we'll see. We'll have to see how the reviews go. This is $13.49, which is pricing it above an average RPG Maker game by quite a lot, but not really putting it at the $26 to $60 range of a full game. It's English and Japanese, but no full audio in either, which might be a problem as you, depending on how many lines of dialogue there are. If you're talking to a lot of people, they probably are using these screenshots in particular to show off the characters more than to indicate that this is mostly conversation. Okay. Let's just do this. There we go. Win. I'm surprised I won there. Wow, 4 wins. Are we really going to make it all the way to 12 wins? Yeah, right. I'll be happy if I made it to 7 wins. I'm happy, frankly, to make it to 4 wins. Next article we have for Gamatsu, Digimon Re-Arise is now available in the West. It's a cell phone game. If you have nostalgia for Digimon, it looks like it's for iOS and Android. Let's see, is there any video here? It probably isn't just going over the story. Have to be careful with these Bandai Namco trailers. They copyright claim them. Yep. This looks like a new gameplay, and it looks like it's got a ton of stuff. Looks like it might be more of a Nintendogs type clone where you're raising the Digimon more than you're fighting them. I guess you are fighting them also. The Digimon cartoon really didn't emphasize so much the idea that you were intentionally in a society that was built around fighting Digimon. A lot of the Digimon episodes, as I recall, did not center around fights at all and just had a brief fight maybe at the end as a way of filling up time, because those transformation scenes could be animated once and then used multiple times. That's why so many anime things had transformation scenes, like Sailor Moon and such. Whereas Pokemon, every single episode of Pokemon centers around the game of Pokemon, which centers around the idea that Pokemon are mostly used to fight each other. Whereas I think Digimon in the Digimon world were mostly living in peace more often. Is there a real appeal, though, to play a Digimon game on your cell phone? I guess it depends on your nostalgia for Digimon. I like the first couple seasons. I need to probably at some point get around to watching one of the Digimon movies that I heard was pretty good, but yeah, I don't have a ton of nostalgia for either one of them. Theater shows. Neither one of them were amazingly good, and by the time they came out, I was probably watching way more mature anime than Digimon and Pokemon was offering, whether or not I was old enough to actually be watching it.
Path is my destiny.
Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Luigi's Mansion 3 overview trailer and Japanese TV spot is available. Has a little ghost dog, interesting. So, yeah. Luigi's Mansion 3 is in particularly a weird spot because Luigi's Mansion 2 came out on the 3DS, so the entire the entire setup there, the series is in an awkward position where it would have made a lot more sense if Luigi's Mansion 1 had come out on the GameCube, which I think it did, and then Luigi's Mansion 2 came out on either the GameCube or the Wii or the Wii U instead of coming out on the mobile platform. Haven't seen one of these on Steam in a long time. We have Shi-Sin Show Solitaire, which is just Mahjong Solitaire, which is like the worst Mahjong, not the real Mahjong. There's nothing visually appealing with this. You have a solid green background. If you were going to play this, you could probably do this with Tabletop Simulator a lot better. It's 89 cents discounted, English only. Having a Mahjong Solitaire game and not supporting the interface for Chinese and Japanese is ridiculous. It probably should also support Korean. Here's Uno. I'm thinking maybe if Magic the Gathering doesn't work, I might just buy Uno since I don't own it, and just like, I don't know if that really would work every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday just playing Uno with no new expansions and no daily quests. That would get very slow very easily. Here's Tabletop Simulator. If you wanted to play Mahjong Solitaire, I think you can do it with that pretty easily. Is Monopoly Plus new? Well, if it is, it's terrible. I saw a Monopoly game that was so poorly programmed that you could win in the first turn by just mortgaging all of your land, trading the mortgaged land to the AI computers. The AI computers would then unmortgage the land, which cost them money, and then you could trade them for the land back, and then mortgage it again. Then they would unmortgage it, and every time you did that, they would just lose more and more cash, so they could be bankrupted in the first turn before you even roll a dice. Really ridiculous, really bad programming, just bad math. And
That minion already attacked.
of course, Shinsei Show is not making it to the follow list. So Tech Raptor as of 4:17 p.m. And see, I was kind of awake at noon. I could have started streaming at noon, but I would have been half asleep, and I knew this Blizzard story was just going to get bigger and bigger. Blizzard Entertainment employees have staged a walkout. Blizzard comments as of 4:17. Somebody on Reddit made this Chinese Imperial Blizzard thing. They also are making Mei from Overwatch. They're putting skins on her to show pro Hong Kong support. People are really more upset about this than I would have suspected they would have been. So I guess maybe I was expecting less than I got. So really, we're gonna have to wait about a week until we get to this full story. Let's see. Here's a quote. The action Blizzard took against the player was pretty appalling, but not surprising. Blizzard makes a lot of money in China, but now the company is in an awkward position where it can't abide by our values. Let's see. Let's hear about the walkout specifically. Tencent owns about 5% of the company. I don't even see a paragraph here talking about the walkout, and that would be the new bit of news here. So the title of this article is not even mentioning the walkout, but okay. We know the walkout happened, or at least we're fairly certain the walkout happened. That's, I guess, all we can stay with.
I was quickly watching you.
So yeah, the story will evolve. That's what it's going to boil down to, is the story will evolve, and we will have more to say later. I can see the end of the tunnel as far as news, but that really means I probably won't get all the daily quests done on screen, so I'm probably going to spend the rest of the night early into 6 or 7 in the morning just playing Hearthstone, getting the daily quest done, so I won't probably get around to doing the spotlight of Magic the Gathering. I'll try to get that done before Friday. But yeah, I don't know how I can. My unexpected success in this Tavern Brawl has lengthened the gameplay quite a bit, and I have another whole Tavern Brawl that I should play out, I suppose, and I will on Friday, I guess. So schedule-wise, I guess Hearthstone, the last Hearthstone might be on Friday, but might be a whole week or longer. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes me about a month to finally just let go of the ghost completely. I'm a little bit more persistent than I probably should be. Like, I probably should have abandoned Hearthstone a year ago, frankly. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Devs can now use the rollback networking SDK GGPO for free on their own projects. What is GGPO? It's apparently good game, peace out. It's been released under the MIT license, which is one of the licenses used. It's, I don't think, terrible. So they can use netcode in both commercial and non-commercial projects in their own online games. I assume that this probably means you could use this in something besides a game if you wanted to. GGPO was created as a fighting game player's reaction to unsatisfactory performance in online matches, and as such aims to cut lag down as much as possible in those online matches by using rollback networking. Rollback networking, if I understand it correctly, would be if one side, one client of one of the players in a multiplayer fighting game went so far ahead and the other one lagged so much, it would roll back to the slowest person's action, not stay with the fastest person's action. Of course, that adds the insecurity of somebody having a lag switch on their computer that just creates lag so that they can potentially cheat the game. I don't know, almost certainly, like GGPO might be something that's very helpful, because GGPO apparently helped power online matches ups for Skullgirls and Killer Instinct and Street Fighter 3's Third Strike Online Edition. So if everybody is just going to be working on what is close to open source software, if not directly open source software, that would probably help the video game fighting industry in particular quite a bit, because the netcode is the #1 thing everybody complains about in fighting games, is that it does not work well. So if we could get one standard open source netcode back in, that would be great. What isn't great is Ms. Sutra's article here. Catalina, the newest version of Apple macOS, brings Apple Arcade but kills support for 32-bit apps/games. So I don't know how many people are actually using anything on an Apple device that isn't just built by Apple itself, that is also still 32-bit. Apple, in my opinion, has always been the worst choice, the lazy man's choice, for people who Apple is built on BSD, which BSD is kind of a branch, kind of like Linux, but not quite. It's something very similar to it, but not Linux. So if you were going to run an Apple OS, you have plenty of other Linux things you could run, or the better move, if you're going to buy Apple hardware, is to just install Windows and run Windows, and I think that's what a significant number of Apple people do. Their actual software has long since lost any real value, in the same way that Windows 10 really doesn't have any value either. It's just the operating system, it's the software inside that matters, and then for the most people that is just can Windows 10 play games? For the most part it can. And can Windows 10 run Chrome or Firefox or whatever other internet browser? And that's 99% of everything most people do. We don't really install email clients. You really don't need Word or anything like that, but if you, I guess, are doing a lot of projects, you might have PowerPoint and stuff like that, but that kind of depends on whether you're in school or not. But yeah, game support is the only thing that Windows 10 really has, and unfortunately Windows 10 seems to introduce bugs, at least for Lego games, and cause micro stuttering and lagging, which is unacceptable, and they never did anything to fix that, certainly. And in part that's on TT Games, the developers of the Lego games, to not patch their software, but they really shouldn't have to patch their software just because an operating system upgrades. Plenty of other game developers didn't patch their software and it runs perfectly fine.
I don't have enough mana.
Do that. That. Next game we have on Steam here is MRAK, which this is just a Super Meat Boy concept in a dark black room. So you have this bloody cube that hits spikes, bleeds all over the place, and that then shows you the area you're supposed to transverse. Which this is clearly one of those frustration games that honestly we're getting to a point where these frustration games need to start being curated out of Steam also. There's far too many of them. They're far too similar to each other. They really aren't offering anything new or interesting. So yeah, that's not making it to the fall list. Gamatsu has an article here. The Xbox corporate vice president Mike Ybarra has departed Microsoft. Quote, "It's been a great ride at Xbox and the future is bright." He's worked there 20 years, so this hardly is a issue of him leaving. It's a little weird that he's leaving before the next Xbox console has been announced and released, because you'd kind of expect him to leave after that point. But I would also say Mike Ybarra is a name I do not recognize at all. This is not a face I really recognize. So he didn't seem like he was a major face, for using a wrestling term, of the Microsoft Xbox group. It didn't seem like he was the guy getting on stage announcing things. People leaving Microsoft is pretty common. If anything, I would say a corporate vice president, which probably means he wasn't really a vice president of anything as big as it sounds, because you can have a lot of vice presidents if you want. So do we want to destroy all? If I destroy all, this will do 2 damage to all enemy minions. So is that the right move? How can we do this any other way? I think what we have to do is this, and then this. That doesn't do anything, so let's do this. I think in a bigger perspective, particularly for Microsoft, the thing they need is they need somebody who knows how to really sell the Xbox in Japan in particular. And they have a very large gap, since it doesn't seem like Sony is too interested in working well with the Japanese developers anymore, ever since they moved Sony Interactive Entertainment to California. They've been pushing a much more pro-censorship stance for the Japanese games, which Sony PlayStation was the home for Japanese games for generations, and the Xbox has sold basically nothing for generations in Japan. They need somebody who's going to get that market. Not just that market, you also still want to get the Australian market and the European market, and in general, you want the entire world market available to you, but in a shorter perspective, the big places where games are being developed are in the West, the United States, Canada, and the UK, and Europe to some smaller extent, and Japan. And if you don't have any Japanese companies wanting to make games for the next Xbox, the Project Scarlet, because the Xbox Project Scarlet has no chance of selling any units, any hardware units, thus no chance of selling any disc-based sales. Why would a Japanese company, why would the next Final Fantasy game, for instance, from Square Enix, why would that be on the Xbox instead of the PlayStation 5? It's not the right financial decision. And I've also often fantasized if they would just hire me, even as somebody who doesn't speak Japanese, if they just hired me and put me in charge of selling the next Xbox console, I think I could do a much better job than what is being done in Japan. It's really not too hard. Like, as far as I understand it, the Japanese people just want to feel like they're listened to and appreciated and respected. It's just all about respect. So some companies would not betray Sony until they felt Sony had fully betrayed them. So a lot of Japanese game developers, you would have to just say, okay, we're here for whenever you're ready to do business with us. But a lot of companies would totally jump ship if you just treat them the way they expect to be treated, which is, I think, really where it boils down to is the problem. Is that Japanese people need to be treated very differently, as is their culture, than what the cold corporate business treatings you would do to a Western game development company. Anyways, I'm going on a rant here, so let's move on to the stories again. Gematsu has a report here. Sony Interactive Entertainment, SIE, Europe is hit with layoffs on October 8th. The European branch reportedly not made aware of the PlayStation 5 reveal at all. There's a lot of craziness happening inside of Sony. You have Sony of Japan, the parent company. You have Sony Music, who is publishing games for some reason. So there's clearly a fight for control on who is the group that is in charge of publishing video games for the PlayStation. And then you also have Sony Interactive Entertainment, which was run out of Japan, and then their office moved to California. If a Japanese company moves its office to America, that probably means they don't care about it too much anymore. We've had this entire year a long list of people leaving Sony too, so there's definitely a talent drain. I've seen lists for major employees that they're trying to hire to replace, like a global marketing manager. They've been trying to hire that, I think, for several months, and I don't think they ever hired anybody. And here is just another story building on that Sony Europe, which is a secondary office, probably just a direct subsidiary of Sony Interactive Entertainment of now California, being hit with layoffs. So that doesn't sound good. This and another victory. Wow! I totally wasn't expecting to have this much success. Is this Hearthstone's way of saying I want you, don't leave me, baby? Is that what this is? What it's saying is, please don't leave Hearthstone. We'll let you win 5 victories on an arena run. Or is this more nefariously? Is this just what you get when all the good players on Hearthstone abandon Hearthstone, which they probably all have? Like, that's still a problem though. If the entire player base of Hearthstone is really just 10,000 really bad players and I become the best player in Hearthstone, that just makes me a big fish in a small pond. I'd much rather be a medium or small fish in a big pond. My YouTube channel in particular isn't a great example of that. Like, certainly I could skip over to some other streaming service that only has about 10,000 people on it, and maybe my content would be the most interesting thing there, but that doesn't have a potential for growth that you need to have if you're trying to run a business, which being a YouTuber allegedly at least is an attempt to run a business. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. Get a job. Sanzaru Games is hiring an environments artist. This is in Dublin, California. It's still a little weird in my head how they split 3D modelers, environment artists, and sometimes some companies just hire artists in general, and don't split it into any subdivision. We got this tweet here from Nintendo Wire. Picross meets Phoenix Wright in the trailer for a puzzle murder mystery called Murder by Numbers. That sounds crazy, to say the least. But I don't follow Nintendo Wire. Like, most of the Nintendo news doesn't... Either it's big enough that you get something like a Mario game is getting developed, or it's small bits of news that nobody really needs to know. So this seems like a weird combination of a visual novel art aesthetic and kind of a Western take on anime, which this is almost more comic booky than anime in its art style. Frankly, it's not very anime at all on second look. But the concept, I think, kind of falls apart. It's from the creator designer of Hatoful Boyfriend, which was kind of a joke game. I feel like if the story is good in this game, you're going to be irritated by the Picross puzzles. If the Picross puzzles are good in the game, you're going to be irritated by the story. I think by the end of the day, by the time you're done playing the game, you're going to not be happy with either outcome. So, yeah. So it really seems like Murder by Numbers has a low chance of being a successful product, just because they instead of taking peanut butter and jelly and mixing it together, they decided to take a big pile of salty pretzels and then add well, no, that actually would work. So salty pretzels and milk on top of it might be a good combination of a bad combination. An example of a bad combination there.
Did someone say Bob?
Job's done.
Kind of hoped one more would hit there. Gamma Sutra has a article here, and this is like the second or third time Epic has come out and said they want censor something. So here we have Gamma Sutra saying, amid the Blizzard Hong Kong controversy, Epic says it won't censor players. This is probably the third time this year though Epic has said that. And on one end, it's kind of just a cheesy woke play to say, yeah, we're with you, we support you. On the other hand, it is a valid fear that I think people are asking whether Epic would censor players, considering Tencent owns more of Epic than they do of Activision Blizzard. Tencent is a 40% shareholder in Epic, whereas Tencent is only a 5% shareholder in Activision Blizzard. Now, the split on how much money they get from Fortnite in China versus how much Activision Blizzard gets in money from in China might be considerably upside down. I wouldn't be surprised if Activision Blizzard's products sell a lot more than Fortnite does. Let's see. This. 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 Game Sutra has the same article. Xbox Live and Game Pass corporate vice president Mike Ybarra departs Microsoft after 20 years. The thing about these announcements, though, is you really should. They really should say what they're doing next. Like, all that comes around here is a quote here that he's, quote, super excited to announce what his next steps will be. I don't even know if I have a story here, but Reggie Fils-Aimé, I believe, was inducted into a video game Hall of Fame, or he was hired to run a video game Hall of Fame. I don't even remember the story. So much has happened. So he left Nintendo of America and has another job now. Like, I don't know why they don't just announce their other jobs when it's a big high-level corporate transition. You are contract working for people. It's not like they're going to let you go 2 weeks after you've been hired, like they can do for all the at-will employees around the United States. Even if Reggie Fils-Aimé did get hired at a new company and didn't do something completely horrible that deserved being fired, they still wouldn't probably be able to do it. I guess we'll
Hunt alone.
do that.
Job done.
TechRaptor has the same article. Mike Ybarra leaving Microsoft after 20 years, so you get 3 different sources telling the exact same story, of which there's really nothing to say yet. There are considerably enough people that have left their jobs in the past few months that if somebody came out and announced that there was a brand new video game company in development, like a new Microsoft competitor, a new Sony competitor, that would be oddly believable. Tell me I didn't already attack. I already attacked. Darn it. That was a mistake. He's trying to have 2 of these on the field. Gamma Sutra has the same article. Sony Interactive Entertainment lays off dozens of UK and US employees. So, yeah, laying people off, firing them. Basically the same thing. Although, technically being fired means you are, generally speaking, fired for cause. Alright. So, is there a value in attacking here? I think there is. If we kill that just summons this. And then attack here. Attack here. We do this. We play this. And he'll probably kill that, but whatever. TechRaptor has this article, Gaming to Grunts offering free games to military and veterans. This is the other organization giving games to veterans. Offering up free games of charge to people currently in the military or veterans, Gaming the Grunts can get you started on a PC library or help you snag a few titles that you haven't gotten anyways. All the games are donated in batches by the developers, so there's only a limited amount of each available. The current batch's biggest games such as Soul Calibur 6, Tekken 7, Gears of War 4 are already sold out, but there are still some games left. The following games are currently available. So you have Air Conflict, Secret Wars, Find the Balance, Hardware Party, Star Traders, The Puppet of Teresa, Rion, Curse of the Four Branches, Nicopole, Larva Mortis, Gunheim, Dark Matter, Wasteland Angel, Space Trader, Shin, Rip Trilogy, Obulus, Hector. Hector is the only game I've recognized so far at all. Aurora's Constellations, Vietnam 65, The Silent Age. I think I played that on my phone. Maybe I didn't cover that. Starlon Tactics, Spacehawk, Insurgency, Flying Tigers, Double Wars, Crash Time, Chains, and Avincast, Rise of the Mage. So, like, pretty much all of those are garbage. Like total garbage games. I have not heard of any of them. Games with Grunts is run by Operation Supply Drop. That, since I don't recognize most of these games, I have no idea how many of them are war-centered, but by the sounds of it, very few of them are war-centered. It feels like a lot of these are just donated. Maybe there's a way that this turns into a charitable donation for the game devs, since they're giving away the free games. 5 wins is not enough to guarantee that we get 150 gold worth back, but there's a chance. 55 gold plus a pack, so we're 5 up. 60 gold, so we're 65 up. And a pack. So, let's see. 115 gold and a pack. The Hearthstone deck tracker is asking what I collected there. Meanwhile, 3 Tavern Brawls will be a nightmare, so win the game with a Shaman or Warlock is the only other thing we can try to do. If we get a fast disconnect, that's fine, because we need to go over to the Asian account, and then I need to jump back to the main account. Yeah, honestly, if you're in the military, getting games for free is probably great, but getting a bunch of garbage games is probably not really what you want. And I'm sure a lot of people in the military are just figuring out ways to burn copies and illegally get older games or even brand new games. But, yeah, or just sharing discs like crazy. It probably is pretty easy to share video game discs if you're on deployment and allowed to have games. So, games to grunts doesn't sound great, but might be worth checking out if you're a veteran or active military. Tech Raptor has an article here. A guy steals $40,000 worth of equipment from Valve. Now, Valve was building their own VR headsets in like a separate building, so I assume that's what they got. Particularly, last September, the PC gaming giant Valve was the target of a serial burglar who managed to run off with over $40,000 worth of games. I imagine you could do that pretty easily. PC parts and other various equipments. It'd be pretty easy to do that because you steal 10 computers and you probably at that point already have $10,000, $40,000 worth of equipment. Now the games themselves, unless they're on disc, would be a lot harder. The suspect named Sean Sheputis, that's quite a name, broke into Valve HQ and stole tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and games. At the time of his arrest, he was looking at 6 other warrants for light offenses such as borrowing a FedEx truck for a spirited driving demonstration with the police, a burglary spree back in 2018, and finally selling stolen games to a local GameStop. According to the local news, Shaputis claims to have broken into Valve HQ multiple times and filled recycling bins with computers and accessories, so it was easy to steal. He was then spotted going to a local GameStop, trading in stolen games for accessories and cash. So, sounds to me like Valve needs some better security, and that is probably the one job I could do at Valve in particular, to have some actual control and authority and not just be an employee that would be wandering around doing basically whatever they wanted, which is what most Valve employees do, and are kind of encouraged to do. Let's see. Yeah, there's no evidence about what exactly they stole. 40,000 too probably is a pretty trumped up number. Like they always trump up the numbers to convict people in theft cases, so I wouldn't be surprised if it really is much less than that. If you were reasonably pricing things, it would have been much less than that. Next we have a game on Steam here called ZZZ, which is an incredibly low effort game, both in its name and in the fact that you're just playing as the letter Z jumping around. This looks like something you would have had in a text mode only Commodore 64 game. This is not something that is even like 4 decades within a reasonable amount of time to come out nowadays. 59 cents discounted, English only. Apparently it's similar to Angry Video Game Nerd and Super Meat Boy, according to Steam. Their recommendation engine still pretty awful.
Why do you call?
Here we go. Gamasutra has an article. Get a job. Obsidian Entertainment is hiring a combat designer in Irvine, California. So take that. Gamasutra has the same story here. Blizzard bans Hearthstone Esports Pro over Liberate Hong Kong interview. This looks like a duplicate tab, but it may not be. I may have just opened a bunch of duplicate tabs on accident, so. Control this and do that. 2, 4, 6, 8 plus 4 plus that is victory. I guess if it weren't for the Hearthstone story, this would have been a pretty slow day, news-wise. Alright, so I can leave that till Friday. Then we need to just switch to the Asian account now and see what we've got going there. By the way, YouTube has decided to really screw me over with the chat. It seems like it's changing that link, the webpage URL, to Google Chat every single time, like the YouTube chat for every stream, just because, just to make me have to do more work. There's really no good reason other than that. Alright, so let's re-roll this, and we need to win 3 games with Druid or Rogue. We're gonna be in a weird position because Monday we'll do this Tavern Brawl, and and now we're glitched. So Friday we'll do the arena, Monday we'll do the Tavern Brawl for still playing Hearthstone on Monday on the Asian account. That leaves me with drawing 3 cards and winning 3 games with Druid and Rogue. So we'll see how this works. Tempo, Rogue, not play ranked at rank 17. And once I run out of news, that's pretty much going to be the end of the stream because we've been going for 3 hours and 13 minutes already. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Report is out that Google plans a game certified device standard for Android. This will fail immediately, as almost every Google project fails immediately. They will be excited about this for about 1 generation of the Android operating system, and then they will drop support of it almost certainly after that. The idea of having certain cell phones certified for gaming doesn't get into the nuance of really where it needs to be. It would be a lot easier if the Play Store just straight up allowed, it kind of already does allow people to say, actually our version of our software won't run well on your equipment because you have such a slow processor or such a little amount of RAM. But most people still allow their game to be downloaded and played even if it plays poorly, and I think that is the way most people would prefer it. Is if you have a cheap cell phone that has a slow processor or a small amount of RAM, then you'd still want to try the game even if it doesn't play well. The idea that you could make a cell phone that is 2 or 3 times as powerful as what modern cell phones are right now is unrealistic. So all you really would be doing is just picking winners and losers and saying, oh, this Samsung phone of course is certified to play games on it, but this cheap HTC phone or Huawei phone may not be certified to play it. We don't need that kind of certification, and we definitely don't need that kind of certification from Google, who is not an expert at all. The only thing I could take from this is perhaps this is a misunderstanding, and what they're really thinking is they're going to certify games to play Stadia, certify phones to play Stadia games. If that were the case, then that would make a little bit of sense. But only in that sense would it make sense.
I fight.
Yeah, and that does still require you to believe that Google Stadia is going to be a success. And if Google Stadia is going to be a success, in my opinion, it's going to be a success in the next 3 or 4 years, not anytime soon. Right. Random card. And then a lot of attacking the face.
I fight.
Just have a face race.
Job's done.
If I can do 4 damage in the next turn and he doesn't kill me in the next turn, then we should be good. So this was kind of a big story that's been overshadowed. The register.co.uk has this article. I don't know, I don't follow the Register. Game over. The Atari VCS architect quits the project, claims he hasn't been paid in 6 months. Atari, which is not the Atari of old, just a holding company that bought the naming rights and the IP of Atari, was kickstarted this new Atari console that looks like, if it even comes out, which is a big if, will just be a standard Linux setup with maybe some extra software overlays on top of it. They had hired a guy who was making one of the emulators of the Atari consoles to work with him, and now he's quit working with them because allegedly they haven't paid him in 6 months. Which honestly, that is way too long to still be working for somebody. If people can't pay you on time, maybe you give them a week, but you start looking for a new job. Like, even if they're a day late, that's a problem. They do it once, they'll do it again. If people can't pay on time, their business is a failure immediately. That's all you can say there. Far too many businesses engage in what is called wage theft in the United States by underpaying or late paying their employees. So, yeah. Gamasutra has the same article here. Atari VCS architect Rob Wyatt leaves the project, calls out Atari for missed pay. The idea that anybody would want a new Atari console is kind of crazy anyways. Even if you were going to make something that was as powerful as the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Scarlet, whatever that's going to be called, the Xbox 2 I guess is what it's going to be called. Having Atari as the brand name is a really bad choice. Okay. Here we go.
Here we go. I fight.
Job done.
Let's see. Next article here we have from Gamasutra, video inside the process of solving a Nintendo-backed coding challenge. This is a GDC video. It seems like this is probably one of those educational things Nintendo supported a little bit and then abandoned. When did this originally happen? This is a new video. Coding game. The programming challenge platform coding game. Why have I not heard of that? Interesting. If it was a big deal, I would have heard of it, almost certainly. This would let me do this. Which lets me do this. Which then lets me do that. Which ends the turn. Gamasutra has the same article. Rovio warns brand licensing restructure could result in layoffs. I guess Rovio does deserve some applause to say layoffs might be coming instead of just announcing layoffs as you're firing the people, which is kind of how it normally goes. So I guess they deserve some credit for that.
Stop copying me!
This.
The light protects me.
And end the turn. TechRaptor has an article here. Turn-based Steam City Chronicles Rise of the Roses releases this Q4. This is a turn-based game of some sort that's coming out. We really don't have time to talk about games that are coming out. That's been so much news today. And it's really only have time to talk about games that did come out. So here's a game that did come out, Instacalm VR, which I assume is an asset flip 3D model of VR walking simulator, for lack of a better experience. I bet everything you see in the screenshots here are the entirety of the game, and there's nothing else. I don't see a reason why it would be helpful or useful to have to put on a VR headset to achieve calmness. If you're in that need, you probably should be taking some some kind of antipsychotic or pills of some sort. Like, if you can't mentally go to your happy place and have to use a VR headset, I think you'd probably get very uncalm when you realize how expensive a headset is.
How much is this worth to you?
This guy's toast.
I fight.
Oh.
Here we go.
Right. If this guy can do 4 damage to me, I've lost. If I can just attack next turn, I've won. Yeah, instant calm is $4.99, and it says it has English full audio, but I don't really believe it. It's definitely not a game I'm even gonna bother to put on the follow list as a VR game, and that's as far as it would go anyways as a VR game. Well, that was an interesting move. Okay. Guess one good turn deserves another. Let's see. Cat's Quest 2 is now available for digital pre-order and pre-download on the Xbox One. I'm really surprised Cat's Quest 2 came out. Like, I was still dragging my feet trying to purchase and play Cat's Quest 1. I didn't even hear of an announcement of Cat's Quest 2. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam here called Space Robinson, hardcore roguelike action. When you have these kind of subtitles, here you know it's probably a low effort game. Now the graphics here actually look pretty good for a top-down twin-stick shooter. But Space Robinson is kind of a low effort name. From Lost in Space reference, or Robinson Crusoe reference. He just conceded. He played a whole bunch of cards and then conceded. Which is fine because we still have a lot to do as far as drawing cards and getting victories. Space Robinson is discounted to $6.99. It's in a big bundle of other games. It's English, Russian, and Chinese as the language, which makes me suspect heavily that it's more of a troll game or an unfinished product. It has 17 achievements on it, which really doesn't make me suspect it too much.
Versus Lunara.
This is probably a problem if we start seeing Russian troll games or Chinese troll games or low effort games in general look this good. And then here we have a pretty high reviews happening here. Also, this came out like yesterday and it's already got 27 reviews, which that feels like review manipulation to me. That doesn't feel legitimate unless this game was in early access. But yeah, I think this is one I'm just gonna skip. This might be actually a good game, but it's got too many little red flags around it. It makes me feel like it's a troll game that's getting promoted. Next we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters and clearly is a mobile game ported. Looks like it's a black and white dungeon crawlers / RPG. English is not supported. It's free to play, so I guess the price is right. It's Chinese only.
Time goes short.
So I guess if you can read Chinese, you might try that, but I doubt you'd even want to play a mobile game ported to PC. That's another category. It would be easy to just say, you know what, we're not going to allow mobile games on the PC Steam storefront. It has to be at the minimum by a 4:3 ratio, 640 by 480 resolution screen, minimum. At maximum and preferred, it should be 16:9 ratio at 1080p scaled up resolution. Next we have Ukulele, and the Impossible Layer came out for Xbox. I'm not sure if this came out for PC also, but I'd like to see it come out for PC because it's basically a clone of Donkey Kong Country, where the original Ukulele was more of a clone of Mario 64. So they're evolving or devolving to different types of clone games, but they seem to be done pretty well also, and there's always a shortage of kids games worth playing on PC in particular.
I can't win them all.
Level by Level Gaming came back and he said, sorry you had to go a while, and I lose signal sometimes too. That's alright, I'm on the verge of wrapping up anyways, and I don't require anybody to really chat. It's nice when people chat, like every single little comment does potentially promote my live stream a little bit more, but it doesn't, and it's certainly nice when people interact with me and I'm not just shouting into a void, but I don't expect it from anybody.
None can escape my fury.
Even when I asked you a question, if you had just chosen not to respond, I would have not made an issue of it and moved on. Because that is something that I think people are forgetting, is that you do have always the right to remain silent and not comment on something if you don't want to. Moving on, Trine 4 has been quickly released. Trine 4, The Nightmare Prince, and Trine Ultimate Collection. Also, they really had to rush out Trine 4 because people really hated Trine 3. And frankly, the company that makes Trine is
The light protects me.
the danger point of going bankrupt because they spent too much money developing Trine 3, it didn't sell well, and they don't have a lot of extra cash flow from what I can tell. Let's see if I do this. I can't do anything else.
I fight.
Here we go.
Attack. Next, Indivisible is now available for Xbox One. This is the probably overhyped game from 505 Games. That's an RPG slash platformer. I think it's actually probably going to be a really good game, but it's been talked about for about 2 or 3 years now, and you're going to have to be careful when playing it to not run into a scenario where you're unsatisfied with the final product.
This is our town, scrub.
Yeah, beat it.
Here we go.
Job done.
Let's see. We also have on Xbox, Winter's Daydream is now available, which looks like a visual novel. From the looks of it, I've heard nothing about this. I have started to decide to cover the Major Nelson announcements of new games coming out for the Xbox, though. Maybe that's a waste of time. Maybe it's something I shouldn't do, but it does let me talk about more closer to AAA games, more games in general, I guess, instead of overly focusing on things that are just specifically on Steam that turn out to often be garbage. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Children of Morta Switch version has been delayed to November, which I feel like Children of Morta just announced a release date 2 or 3 months ago and they're already delaying it. and I don't even really know what Children of Morta is. It's a roguelite in which we play an entire family of heroes through an emotional narrative, it says. Okay, alright. Well, we'll see what happens when the game comes out. That's really all it boils down to, is we'll see if the game is good when it happens.
Here we go.
Let's see. I believe this is tabletop news from TechRaptor. A casual version of Gloomhaven is coming to stores next year. I'm fairly certain this is a tabletop Gloomhaven, though, not a digital version. Yeah. These look like characters that could have been in a video game, certainly. And there might be a Gloomhaven video game out there, but I don't know.
So many.
The exact opposite could also be true. Let's see. Do I need lackeys?
Oh, up to no good. Me too.
Nothing.
Let's see if that works.
Go shots!
Need to hurry up with the news because this is gonna quickly be done. Gematsu has Concrete Genie PlayStation Underground gameplay. Concrete Genie is out now. We'll start hearing some reviews of it. I imagine it's not going to be much of a game, and I imagine it's going to be a really short indie, like, story-based experience. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Get a job, join Game Closure as a back-end engineer, I believe. Man, I'm having duplicate tabs again. I wonder if I screwed up my anti-duplicate tab plugin by blocking some of its content when it pops up as an annoying pop-up. We have a game on Steam here called Alien Nautics, which might be a interesting first-person shooter, but also might just be a very visually polished 3D asset flip. All I can really do for these types of games is put them on follow. It's early access, discounted to $22.49. It says it has English full audio. It has a requirement for a third-party account in a third-party EULA. I think that gets it off the follow list, frankly. I don't want to have to make a third-party account. The only one I would have been willing to do that is if Magic the Gathering Arena was on Steam. That would have been nice. But it wasn't, so... There we go. Yeah, I'm not willing to give a third-party developer make a third-party account. Let's see, looking at the other games this developer made, by the way, which this is a good way to do some research, but it takes too long time. We have Predator Simulator, which is mixed reviewed. We have Caribbean Odyssey, which has no reviews. We have Skynight Rising Portal to the Past, which is mostly negative. I wonder if the Skynet game has anything to do with the Terminator series, or if it's just using the same name. So yeah, Reality Gameware, as a publisher, not a good publisher to do business with. They don't have a good name behind their products. So this won't go on the follow list. After all. And then that brings me to the Humble Bundle store, which...
Who goes there? This
Here we go.
Yeah, beat it.
We'll look and see if we have any new Humble Bundles. Worth mentioning. The Humble Monthly Bundle might be new. Otherwise, it doesn't look like we have anything. Nope. No new Humble Bundles, which then that just brings me back to my Twitter feed to see if there's any new news. Almost certainly. Let's see. Level by Level Gaming says, did I miss the Atari news? I guess you did, yeah. The long story short, we can recap that, is the Atari is not likely to ever come out in any kind of good form or factor. The developer who is making an Atari emulator hasn't been paid in 6 months, he claims, and has quit working with Atari that was going to make the new Atari hardware. And yeah, I don't know why anybody would have ever had any faith in this new Atari company that is just purchased the name of Atari. In all honesty, there's some amazing backstories talking about Atari in particular, and how that company was really good until it was purchased by Time Warner in the 80s, and then it kind of fell apart at that point. That was the last time anybody should have had any passion or love for Atari. Well, I just need to draw more cards. Let's just play Zoo Warlock, and we might as well play ranked here. But I don't even think there's a good portfolio of Atari games that you would want to be able to play, considering how many things on Atari would have been licensed products anyways that you would just never be able to get the license for. There was a story, I think we talked about it on Monday, of the lawyer of Nintendo having died, one of the original lawyers, and they at one point gave him a boat called the Donkey Kong, and nobody on the Giant Bomb cast understood why the lawyer, Jack Kirby, I believe his name was, Kirby was his last name, and they named Kirby after him also. And it's a real sad disappointment that nobody on the Giant Bombcast could have known off the top of their head the history of Nintendo enough to say Jack Kirby is most famous for working at Nintendo because Universal Pictures, I believe at the time, was suing Nintendo, claiming that Donkey Kong was a ripoff of King Kong, which almost certainly it was, and was copyright infringement, almost certainly. But Jack Kirby, being such a good lawyer, got Nintendo to out of that mess. I think in part of the reason why he got them out of that mess is because I don't think it was, I think it was Universal Pictures. I don't think they really even had the rights to King Kong. They just thought they did, which is often a problem. So they really couldn't even prove that they owned it. I think that was one of the big turns in court. So yeah, he saved Donkey Kong from being able to be sold and licensed to other things like the Atari and the Commodore 64, and eventually on the NES when the NES came out. Otherwise, Nintendo probably would have failed miserably, and Nintendo was very grateful for that, and doing the standard Japanese thing of being grateful, they gave him a boat, and they named it to Donkey Kong. And anybody who's in the video game industry should be required to know enough video game history to know that story. Like, that's an important story legally, it's an important copyright story, it's an important historical reference. And the fact that nobody at the Giant Bombcast table knew that, or cared to say it, or cared to even look it up, because they all have computers in front of them. They could all have searched it, but instead they just flippantly turned it into a joke. kind of shows where their position is nowadays, is that they just think their personalities, and they think their personality is so good that people would want to follow their podcast based on that. And maybe they're right. Like, I'm not sure I can disagree with them. I'm still personally listening to the Giant Bombcast, even though I probably shouldn't be. But I would save myself a few hours if I wasn't a week. Meanwhile, all I'm doing is scrolling down my Twitter feed and seeing if there's anything really of new importance. And this will be the last game, and then we'll end the stream. And then I'm gonna have to play off screen to challenge a friend and I think get some other stuff done. Job done. Come on, just hit this guy twice. Well, that didn't work, but guess whatever. Yeah, and either my Twitter feed is just messed up, or there's just a lot less tweets going out these days. People are too busy with other things. So we have like a game on Steam here called Heroes of Hellas Origins Part 1, which is just a match 3 game, or maybe some other kinds of games combined. It really just looks like a match 3 game. This is $5.59, way too expensive, particularly when you're claiming it to be an episodic game. English, German, and Russian with 63 achievements. Yeah, and the animation is not great, and it's not widescreen. Like, this is not great. There's way too much blue of the same kind of blue there.
I wonder.
There's better ways that you could have done that. Put some bits of gray or white in it to make it a more realistic looking hair or beard.
Almost out of time.
Right. There we go. Then we also have River City Melee Mock, which Famitsu reviewed this game pretty low. And this looks like, I think it's a player versus player game. $13.99. It does say it has some single player on it. But unlike River City Girls, which look like an amazing new twist on the River City series, this looks like a very low effort twist on a brawl game with River City characters. So I'm just going to put this on the fall list, so when I do a fall list cleanup, I can recognize that it's horribly reviewed, which is almost certainly what's going to be the case. And then Gamatsu has Samurai Showdown DLC Kara Basari, launches October 15th. So if you know who this character is and care, he's coming to Samurai Showdown. And I think that's all the new news I could even get. Alright. So we got everything done that needs to be done on the Asian account. We've got everything done that needs to be done on the European account. I just have Challenge a Friend, I think, on the Americas account. And that's pretty much it. We nearly went 4 hours and didn't break it up episodes at all. That's going to be it for the stream. I think we'll stream almost certainly Hearthstone on Friday, and then maybe by Monday we will be straight up doing Magic the Gathering Online or Magic the Gathering Arena only. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you've subscribed, ask somebody else to subscribe, whether they watch or not. It couldn't hurt me. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites so you get backup notifications, there's a bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a gift card, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. That way I still have games that I can cover for you. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.